And just 7 races lay unturned as the regular season drifts into the mirage of the desert, with the spots to go for the championship dwindling with each running lap. And it is a beautiful desert landscape, Avondale, Arizona. Welcome to the virtual Phoenix Raceway and coverage of the 2026 Droppin the Hammah Cup Series season and the Back Out 225 from Phoenix. As always, glad that you're with us on the KBueno Racing Network as we continue to figure out who the 12 drivers will be to move on to the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series chase. Regular season coming to a close, and one of our next short track venues on the calendar, where alongside Francisco Bacalhau for the first time in a little while, I am Kenneth Bueno. Francisco, first of all, welcome back. It's been a little while since the KBueno Truck Series Championship. First broadcast you and I get to share after a few months, and a lot of different changes in my life and your life. And so how do you feel coming back here, dropping the Hammah Cup Series at Phoenix Raceway? A lot of 2-mile tracks have been sprinkled in the schedule. A tough-to-drive short track on the cards for these folks tonight.
Yeah, happy to be back up here in the booth for my first summer appearance on the KBueno Racing Network. I miss being up here, miss getting to watch some racing with you, but we're here at the short track out in the west side of the country, and we're going to be in store for a good one. This track, doesn't matter if it's day or night, it's always a difficult racetrack to gather your race car around, and especially with these 750 horsepower cars that we have in store for this race, it is not going to be easy for anybody to navigate it.
And this Droppin the Hammah Cup Series has been a part of the Summer of Speed here on the KBueno Racing Network alongside the SAC Cup Series, just dwindling in this regular season. And again, those chances to make the Droppin the Hammah chase coming by now at a premium, given that we are at the back half of this main schedule that's running through June and July. You look at Phoenix in the middle of what has been a flurry of 2-mile-plus racetracks, where we were at Talladega Superspeedway, then went on to Michigan, Pocono, and now here at the short track before we go right back to another track that's at least 2 miles and over at the virtual Daytona International Speedway before we go back out west to go road course racing for the first and only time in the season in Sonoma County. So Francisco, when you look at a track like Phoenix, right in the middle of it all, we've gotten used to high speed, high intensity action. Now you have to deal with different types of speeds at a very short venue. What does that do for the drivers when you're so used to these larger tracks on the schedule and now you have to pivot to more of a short track type of drive?
The braking will play a largely bigger role than it does at most of these other tracks. Since you do carry a lot of speed at a track like Phoenix, you can approach easily almost 170 miles per hour when you go off into turn number 1. So you take a lot of braking in these cars with the lack of downforce they have, slow them down to about 110. Same thing down the back straightaway, you go upwards of 160 and you slow down also to about 100 or so. And you really only have down on that end of the racetrack about 1 or 2 grooves in 3 and 4. 1 and 2, you have multiple different options, especially if you're in a battle, you want to lean up towards that higher side. But it's really going to be a big question as far as how does each driver manage the braking, manage the front tires, and especially those rear tires with the power that you have underneath your car. You've got to take care of those rear tires, otherwise that run that ends up going all the way in a fuel tank, which could be about 90 laps or so, it really starts feeling like it's longer than 90.
It is very different when you drive a track like Phoenix, of course, under the lights in Avondale, Arizona, so we won't get the entire scope of a full day structure of Phoenix like we did last season. However, it is still going to be rather much a challenge. Higher horsepower output, first short track in a while. Might be just a little rusty for the drivers as they come in to the foreground here tonight. Well, the NASCAR Cup Series drivers were just racing around the Tricky Triangle and the Pocono Raceway earlier this afternoon, and this series beat them to the punch by at least a week. Sunday last week, we had our race at the Pennsylvania 500K at the virtual Pocono Raceway, and Cedric Hunter, that is the way to describe that race in its entirety, Francisco, dominating at the very beginning, taking the lead even though he wasn't the pole sitter on lap number 1, spread out to at least a second or more of a race lead. It was only a driver like Warren Kyle Keith, very strong car in the first run, to try and catch up to the driver of the 45. Just could not do it though. Lots of good fighting though in the midst of the top 5 and the top 10. This race would run green for a majority of it. Green flag pit stops became a huge concern for the drivers very quickly on. Jesse Whittington and a few others taking down pit road before the first caution of the night. Kip Beasley going sideways off the tunnel turn, that's turn 2, nosing into the inside wall. quick yellow would come out. Hunter would bring them back to the charge of the green flag. And Francisco, strategy of Pocono always seemed to come hand in hand, just given the way these races end up like. A lot of spread out activities, Cedric Hunter at the front, and it seemed like nobody could stop him for a while.
And then towards the end, we really saw this race pick up intensity. In the closing stages, some yellow flags would end up coming out that would send this race into an array. And Warren Kyle Keith was one of the fastest cars all night. He was up towards the front end of this field with Cedric Hunter. Those caution flags would play a huge role. You see him bringing it down pit road here under the green flag. This was with 15 to go, and this is whilst drivers are still trying to stretch fuel as far as they can in hopes of trying to split the strategy up or try something different. And then this is right where everything turned differently. Whilst he's down pit road, the 75 of Christian McCrelly pulls off the racetrack, but still somehow is registered as a yellow flag. That sets up a restart where the turning point, Cedric Hunter gets into the left rear of the 24, sends him spinning into the tunnel turn, bringing out a caution with 10 laps to go, and ultimately make it a battle between the 45 and the 75. But this was very much the peak controversial moment.
Yeah, literally the turning point. Warren Kyle Keith, a contender all night, and then pretty much out of the race. Green flag came out inside the final 10 laps to go. Alex Muscarella staying out on strategy, hoping his breath would be enough to be able to blow away the rest of the field. But lo and behold, Cedric Hunter would weave on by. Big bump from Brandon Banks. Gave him a lot of credit in the post-race interview, sailing off of turn 3 for the final time, and back-to-back wins for the driver of the 45. The Canadian becomes the first driver in Droppin the Hammah Cup Series history since Lawson Peel, and did it back at Darlington and at Bristol in the late stages of last season to win back-to-back races. Now count them 5 wins for the 45 machine of Cedric Hunter, already picking up nicely after his teammate Zachary Hall won the title for the Category 5 esports team last season in Homestead, Miami. So Cedric continues to climb up the ranks, now from 7th place in the standings up to 4th. He has made that incremental climb after all of those wins. Brandon Banks continues at the top of the board. Steven Stampian and Garrett Walden have moved into 2nd and 3rd. You see Jaden Porter, car 82, moving down to 5th. He has missed the last 2 races, didn't show up a few weeks ago at Kansas, and then missed at Pocono last week due to connection issues entering the session. So he's dropped a lot, trying to regain some points, making his first return in a little while tonight. And of course, the top 12, what we're watching for, the chase for the cut. Alex Muscarella now 30 points behind SKM Racing's Kevin Roy in 12th with 364 points. And you see that right red line at the bottom end of your screen, bottom right-hand corner where Timothy Stubblefield is. We'll keep a monitoring track on who is eligible and who is not eligible mathematically to make it to the chase. So as soon as that red line becomes a bright red for all the drivers 20th on forward, that means giving the indicator they cannot mathematically point their way into this chase. Again, no playoffs, so there's no win in your in system. It is all based on consistency and the body of work you put in over the course of the year. So that's been something the drivers have been getting used to, something we've been trying to grasp here at the KBueno Racing Network after many leagues choose the playoff format. Now as NASCAR has made the switch in real life, we'll see how that affects the drivers and their mentality going into the final few races of this regular season. Well, the drivers are right behind the iRacing official pace cars, so let's take you trackside to bring you the starting grid for race number 13 and the back out 225 under the lights here from the virtual Phoenix Raceway. We're on the pole. It is Storybook. Jaden Porter, the Kentucky native, first appearance in a few races for the driver of the 82. He's on the front row with a pole-sitting position with Jesse Whittington, the Cypress Racing Academy Chevrolet, on the outside. Whittington, an average finish of 2.3 over the last 3, dropping the Hammah Cup Series starts in his rookie year. Cedric Hunter trying to go 3 in a row from having 5 wins to 6 wins. If he can do it here tonight, he won our last short track affair at Iowa earlier on this season. And Warren Kyle Keith, heartbreak after last week's race at Pocono. He's starting alongside the driver he had contact with in the tunnel turn in the waning lap. So we'll see if that breeds anything from row number 2. Richard Swabley in his number 32 Ford Mustang lines up tonight inside the top 5. Rookie Charles Van Schaik, a top 10 points running scenario, trying to keep his chase hopes alive and momentum high as well, as he runs his Scout Racing diecast Ford inside the top 6. Charles Stevens rolls off from the 7th spot, another rookie trying to point his way into the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series chase. And Garrett Walden, the rookie driver who is now 3rd in standings, a very solid number 43 season as he rolls off from 8th. Stephen Harlow is in 9th, Dana Shepard for the DEP Racing Squad in the rest of the top 10.
11th goes to James Kunkel in the number 12 machine. He rolls off alongside Daniel Holdcroft's number 4. Going back to 13th, Justin Erb in the number 20 machine is going to be starting alongside Kip Easley's number 27. 15th will go to Alex Muscarella. He's on the outside looking in, the first of those outside the cut line. That is not me in 16th, I promise you. I'm up here in the booth. David Durand was up in 17th spot with Timothy Stubblefield in the 18th position. And rounding out our top 20, Brad Fulham and Casey Knighton.
And then back in 21st to close out the field, the last driver into the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series chase standings before tonight's race is started. That is Kevin Roy in the 22. You just saw Jaden Porter in his black and red Chili's Ride the Dente Chevrolet give up spots at the inside of the racetrack. That is because he did miss the driver's meeting. And if you do miss the driver's meeting here in the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series, it is a mandatory appearance. If you do miss it, you get an end-of-line penalty to begin the night. So Porter, who comes in 5th in point standings, a driver who we've mentioned has missed a few races, is trying to get back in the swing of things. He now will have to give up his track position to start. But nonetheless, still a welcome return for the driver of the 82, already a 2-time winner this season. So that will indeed give the inside front row spot. Who else, Francisco, but Jaden Porter in the back, and now Cedric Hunter at the front of this field. It seems like 45 cannot stop winning in 2026. Jesse Whittington on the outside of row number 1. Phoenix has a long way to go when that pace truck rolls off to see the green flag for the very first time. 13th race and 2nd all-time here in the Avondale Desert. The Toyota of Cedric Hunter trying to go 3 in a row and be the first since Lawson Pio to do it and continue a dominant back half of the season, while Jesse Whittington wants to keep his momentum high and get his first career win. Who can grab the checkered Racing in the Desert for the first time this season? Green flag in the back out 225.
Challenge for the top spot. That's the 94 that's hung on good in this initial launch. He loses out eventually in turn number 4, but Jesse Whittington, great effort there on lap number 1 to maintain 2nd, even shows some pressure to the 45. He settles in now with Charles Stevens, 32 of Richard Swavelin, and Stephen Harlow running out our top 5.
Yeah, great battle between those top 2 leaders, but Hunter pulls away, full song, as they come back to the back straightaway. And now all of a sudden, Chuck Stevens, Richard Swavely engaging in that battle for that 3rd spot. Stevens running pretty well at Pocono Raceway last week on Sunday. The SimRapMarket.com Chevrolet pushing to the inside of the dogleg where Swavely's trying to make home right behind. An inside look for 2nd between the 2 Cypress Racing Academy teammates. Down under goes Stevens and makes the move for 2nd.
Now, most of the front has remained single file. There's a little bit further back battle going on for the 9th spot. That's David Duran and Garrett Walden. That's been settled as the 98 of David Duran has moved himself up into 9th. There you see Jaden Porter now, who started at the rear of this field, has already worked his way up to 11th, and he's looking to the inside of Walden to take over a top 10 spot here, and he'll do so to start lap number 4, Kenneth. So what a good start here for this 28. He ran good here when the 4-wide series was at Phoenix, spent most of that race in a recovery effort from early troubles from lap number 1 off contact that gave him some rear bumper damage, wound out with the top 10 in that race. So Jaden Porter, known for having good speed here, and he told me, Kenneth, he is prepared at any point this evening for green flag interviews. So I think that's something we should keep in the back of our minds.
Oh, all right. Well, we can have a cameo from Jaden Porter while he's running under green, and as he continues this drive through the field, of course, the 2-time winner this season, trying to regain all of that momentum after missing at Kansas and then also being absent from the race of the Tricky Triangle last Sunday in the Pennsylvania 500. Great onboard look with the Chevrolet as he pushes through. And again, him and Brandon Banks have been the talk of the town, other than Cedric Hunter starting to catch fire as of late. We talk about consistency on a high mark, and Porter and Banks certainly fit the bill for those who are in contention for the title. And even though they haven't won too much this season, like Cedric has, they still have been around for the picture every single week. So that is something we need to watch out for, especially knowing that Brandon Banks is not in this race tonight. So there is plenty of points that Brandon Banks will lose. Jaden Porter can be able to gain in the meantime. Huge battle, 3 wide, all the way back through the pack. Jesse Whittington getting swallowed through the mix. But as Cedric Hunter comes off of 3 and 4, this time for lap number 8, we take a moment in silence to honor the late great 2-time Cup Series champion, Kyle Busch. Thank you for joining us in that moment of silence. Obviously, the stock car community is still feeling the loss of Kyle, and we have our thoughts always with his family, Samantha, Brexton, Lennox, the entire Busch group, as they continue to recover from such a tragic loss. But all of our love shown to them and all the drivers here in the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series, many of them watching Kyle Busch's career, whether a fan or not. They've been able to indulge in all of his successes over the last years, and obviously all of them affected as well by the tragic passing a few weeks ago. And Francisco, I know this is a very interesting thing to bring up because you are a lifelong Kyle Busch fan, and we haven't had a broadcast together on the KBueno Racing Network since his passing. So I just want to give you the time while we're running under green here and you're watching some battles on the racetrack, what Kyle meant to you as a driver you looked up to and supported, watching NASCAR as a fan growing up, and obviously your thoughts in the wake of it all, and whether it be the support, whether it be just the overall reaction, and just any thoughts that you have on what Kyle meant to you and his legacy.
Yeah, I mean, he was really the first guy I cheered for in NASCAR. I kind of was channel surfing back in, say, 2010, saw the M&M's car and thought, hey, that's pretty cool, like most kids probably thought around that time. But as the years went on, I just realized, hey, this is a very talented driver. He's really good. The first vivid memory of a race I watched that he won was that infamous 2012 Bud Shootout. And man, that was an electric race for him to come away with the win. He ultimately ended up winning his first championship in 2015 after that injury. We were there together, watching the race together in 2019 when he got his second championship. That was the first time we ever went to a race together. And I know the career towards the back end didn't go exactly the way he and everybody else really wanted to, but Kyle was just always someone to be reckoned with when it came to going down for race wins, especially in, it doesn't matter which car he was stepping in, whether it was a truck, the O'Reilly car, the Cup car. You just knew before the race was over, you had to deal with him to win these races. He gave it all. He knew how to get the best out of the car, and it's a shame, really, that he's no longer with us. It was a tough day to process that information when it was all unwinding. I was sitting at my computer and I see the news come across, and I let out a shriek because I just thought there's no way that this could be real. And it was just that whole weekend at Charlotte Motor Speedway, of course, but even just with myself and even my family here, they understood how much Kyle Busch had meant to me over the 16 years I'd been a fan of his. And going to Nashville the week after, even then, so it was just different. And I know that he's in a better place now, but it really does sting for everybody in Richard Childress Racing, the Busch family, everybody that knew or has met Kyle or known what he's been about. Because normally when someone is 41 years old, you're not expecting to lose them, much like Kobe Bryant did a few years ago. And like Denny said, that was our Kobe Bryant in this case. So it's been tough, but there's things we can take away from this for ourselves, from Kyle himself, and we could just use his memory, his legacy, his Hall of Fame career, which hopefully he'll get inducted in the next year or so, and use that to kind of help us guide ourselves into the future.
Some great words spoken, Francisco, and I couldn't have said it any better. You know, I grew up not liking Kyle as a driver. I was a big Jimmy Johnson fan. You know, I wasn't too fond of Kyle's attitude on the racetrack, but that's something that as a racing fan, it deepens your love for the sport. When you have the people you love, the people you don't like, but obviously not on a very personal level, because I never knew Kyle myself personally. I would never hate him personally, but it's just you don't like him as a driver, as an athlete, and that in a banter way, you know, fuels your love for the sport in that sense, where you have your heroes and villains in your head and all of these storylines that develop. But no doubt Kyle was a winner. Kyle was a great companion, and you know, most of the Cup Series field has been shaped by Kyle and his impact on the sport overall. So obviously a tragic loss, but I do love seeing the outpour of support from the community, NASCAR, and everyone involved to the entire Busch family, and of course giving support like Richard Childress is, leaving that number 8 open in case Brexton, if he gets to the Cup Series level, if he wants to run that number, regardless of what team it's with, Richard is going to give him that number, and I think that's definitely awesome. Watching a battle for third here, Jaden Porter has made very quick work. You wouldn't think he started at the back of the field tonight, but he has already made his way up to the top 5 and already making a charge on Stephen Harlow in this battle for third. Charles Van Schaik has since taken away second, that bright blue Dynaco-colored Ford Mustang Dark Horse, but this battle for the third spot continues back to turn 1 as Stephen back to the inside, trying to hug that yellow line on the inside of 3 and 4, or 1 and 2 rather, very shallow end of the speedway near contact as they came off the corner, and Porter takes away third place.
Like I said, he was faster when we were here, ran the 4-wide race here, just that Steven Maggio took victory in. He had that damage from lap number 1 on the initial start of the race and spent the race a lap down or so, and didn't get back on the lead lap until inside like 20 laps to go. Jaden Porter has speed here. He usually is fast when we show up to the Phoenix Raceway. So to see the Ride to Dente machine move up closer towards the field, not a shock to me. He's within 2 seconds of Cedric Hunter still. He normally keeps his tires clean. He doesn't normally wear them out either. So if we get well into a long run here where we approach the length of green flag pit stops, which you could be expecting in around 90 laps into the event, it wouldn't surprise me if the 82 machine is up there fighting the 45 for the race wins. Those have been 2 of our most winning drivers this season, apart from Steven Stempien.
Yeah, those 2 drivers strong tonight, but of course Hunter still being the man to beat. He's the hunted by Charles Van Schaik. Right now the fastest car in the top 5, 27.736. That's faster than anyone in the top 5 group. Jaden Porter has been back there as well. Looking at some battles in the middle of the top 6. Of course, Stephen Harlow bleeding a few spots there to Jaden Porter first. David Duran, the rookie, second. Has some memories from this Phoenix Raceway from last season in a great late race battle with Eric Schaefer. Those 2 were at it all night long under very different conditions here in Avondale, Arizona. Bright sun, hot track temperature. Schaefer getting a charge from Harlow in the final lap of the race, but it was no match for the Tracker Boats ATV Bass Pro Shops number 3 Chevrolet, as Schaefer was able to walk away with his first and only career Droppin the Hammah Cup Series win. Then Harlow, of course, hoping that tonight will be a very different story and will be his first career Droppin the Hammah Cup Series win. So Harlow having to deal with that runner-up stop, was very happy about the finish then, and of course trying to keep this momentum up to make it to the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series chase. Several times this season, this DTH Chevrolet has been in contention to win, but right now still in the midst of the top 5 and under fire just a bit from the driver right in front of him, Warren Kyle Keith. What a roller coaster of emotions it has been over the last week or so for the driver of this 24 as he hits the wall in turns 1 and 2. From having a winning car at Pocono last Sunday to then being turned around in the tunnel turn by the eventual race winner. Was very frustrated after that moment. Almost thought his race was going to be thrown away when he came down pit road and the late race caution came out with Christian McCrelly coming to a stop on the back straightaway. But ever since, Keith was able to try and recover, and he's done a great job running through the field tonight. Great race cars overall for this Ford Mustang Dark Horse, and now running in the top 5 after being as low as 14th in tonight's race.
Looks like we already have 1 car out of this race. Kenneth, the 19 of Brad Fulham, came into the night 14th in the standings, I believe. He's 5 laps down as it stands right now, not currently in the session. So what was needed a big night out of the number 19 machine, who was 17th in the standings going into the night. Very big question marks revolving his chase eligibility and being able to count those points up. As Swavely goes hard into the outside wall, almost went straight up there. Looks like we stay under the green flag as he was able to bounce back off of it, but it almost looked like when a driver loses a right front tire with how straight it went. But just to kind of wrap a bow as he nearly makes contact there with the 4 of Holdcroft and the 48 of Muscarella, and he's actually going to go for the spin, and he saves it.
Oh, what a save by Richard Swavely. Kept it all on fours. And the 32 car will continue on. That was a big-time scare for Swavely. Has a lot of damage on the right front of his Ford Mustang. And he will take his car down pit road. So on lap 28, looks to be a scheduled pit stop, but not one that he would have wanted to take. And it looks like he is just gunning this one to pit road. So I think his night is over here from Phoenix Raceway, and that is indeed the case. So car number 32 making a quick exit on lap 29, our first big scare of the night. Francis going right at a really tough part of the racetrack to make any kind of save. Very flat at the bottom of this Phoenix Raceway, especially right here in that higher bank turns 3 and 4 at 11 degrees of banking. Just a great save, but tough break to see the 32 car out of it early on.
And he keeps it straight, so and eventually dip to it. So unfortunate for Swavely. That's going to be a tough one for him, for his point situation. When you look at the standings, Kenneth, entering tonight's race, the 32, he was sitting in a decent spot. He wasn't exactly doing all that bad. He was only 33 points above Alex Muscarella and 38 ahead of Justin Erb. So whilst there's not much room for him to have a night like this, I will say the good thing going in his direction, this isn't a big field tonight. Despite the DNF, he's in 18th position. So even if an Alex Muscarella gets a top 10 finish, he might not gain a whole lot more points compared to Swavely.
Yeah, there will be at least a silver lining in there. Kevin Roy is still in this race, but the fact that he is 15th right now, it is only a 3-spot difference. And knowing where Alex Muscarella sits, only a spot above Kevin Roy, so it really isn't going to be that much of a swing in points, but you're still right. I mean, any race out of it early on like Swavely's is still going to matter. It's still going to lose him points that he otherwise would have gained or would have maybe kept stabilized. Again, that 30-point gap between Kevin Roy and Alex Muscarella is the one we've been watching for the top 12 to make it into the chase. So all of them are still mathematically eligible, but again, not many times do you want to risk being put out of the top 12 by races like this where, you know, things go wrong, you have bad luck, or maybe just the break doesn't go your way here at Phoenix. It is a tough shocker to see the 32 car out, one of 2 DNFs tonight alongside Brad Fulham in the 19. There's David Duran, part of a 3-car battle here, running for 4th place, and all of a sudden, that bright red Target Ford Mustang of Warren Kyle Keith has entered the chat, bringing the crossover off turn 4. Beautiful move under Harlow, taking the dog leg, and he takes away 5th as a result.
Great battle really going on here for these positions as Stephen Harlow now peeks to the inside of Warren Kyle Keith, but that goes to show just how effective that outside lane in 1 and 2 really is. That's really the wider part of the racetrack, so it's where you can make your moves, it's where you can venture around the racetrack. This end 3 and 4, there's no traction compound. You really want to stay as close to the bottom side of the racetrack and make all the grip that you can and roll that speed. Then you get here and you'll do something like this. Warren Kyle Keith putting about 2 tires just below the yellow line, trying to do some Kevin Harvick magic and roll the bottom, and he'll use that to get past David Durand.
What a drive from Warren Kyle Keith, back into the top 4 for the first time since lap number 1. And Warren Kyle Keith slowly but surely making his way through the field. That is what was so notable from his drive last week at Pocono, his ease of working through cars in track position at tracks that are relatively hard to pass that way. Duran got the chrome horn in turn 1 by Stephen Harlow, had to back out of that one. Those two walk away scot-free. But for Warren Kyle Keith, I mean, he has turned things up, Francisco, in the late portions of this regular season. Overall performance has been very high for the Florida native. And although the wins haven't shown up yet for car 24, performance is definitely still on the table.
Yeah, he's definitely still hungry to try and take that first win, and it's amazing we're sitting here talking about Warren Kyle Keith having not won in this iteration of Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series, but he's always been there. He's always been around in contention. And I think none of it compares to the heartbreak he experienced at Daytona. I think the way that finish and that run to the checker flag went down, I think it's almost as quintessential as it gets with how many heartbreaks he's had, but it is going to go down his way. With a driver as good as he is and with how often he puts himself in position to win these races, Warren Kyle Keith will get a win. It's not a matter of if, certainly more so when. As this battle continues to rage on between these two, Keith has driven over a second away from this battle for the 5th spot, and it's Stephen Harlow that eventually did get past Duran, Durant not exactly letting the 6 go, but you can definitely see the fall off difference between those two. And speaking of closing battle, Jaden Porter continues to inch his way closer to Charles Van Schaik. There's about half a second between those two out on the racetrack. You see on the main portion of your screen. And this is really Jaden Porter's best situation, is getting a long run like this at the start of the race, especially since he gained all that track position that he essentially lost by missing out on the driver's meeting. So this is as good as a start as the 82 could have hoped for. Cedric Hunter out there by 2 seconds. Really, really, really solid stuff here, and everybody's in the top 10, at least so far through 40 laps, appears to have gotten themselves into a rhythm and pretty far spread out.
And you've got the fastest cars in the top 5, all 1, 2, 3, 4. Basically, they have clocked in 28 ones, and it's been kind of fluctuating between most of the drivers, Cedric being really the best of them all, other than Warren Kyle Keith right now. But you're right, for Jaden, this is the best case scenario. He's had a run to breathe. He's had enough time to settle in his car, and even though the track position gain was a tough challenge when we started this race, definitely looking much easier to get to the race leader once pit stops start coming around, or if a yellow does bring them the life of a stop in the playing action. Through 41 laps, we've stayed green here at Phoenix Raceway, and is back out 225. We're glad that you're with us on the KBueno Racing Network. Take another look at our skmcars.com race analysis in this 225-mile race. Of course, 225 miles at Phoenix is worth 225 laps. This is a 1-miler, 362 kilometers from this 1-miler in the desert. And it's been, so far, I mean, typical like we saw with Pocono last week, right? We saw a lot of green flag racing very early on, a lot of drivers just settling into their rhythm. And then, of course, the idea of green flag pit stops, when that will take into effect. And Phoenix is just such an interesting track to do strategy at, Francisco, because of the nature of it being so flat. Obviously, you've got the dogleg in play where the exit of pit road is. You also have the entry of pit road, which we noted on the initial start, Francisco, is way behind the actual front straightaway. How different is that when you have to play strategy at this track versus, let's say, your typical cookie cutter or maybe typical short track where pit road is in a little more of a traditional spot?
This pit road is very tricky to get in and out of, with the curvature on pit road starting just off of turn 2 and then having to account for the speed difference that you have to maintain to make sure you're on pit road speed, especially with the new pit road speed that iRacing has implemented. And if we get to those pit stop sequences, which we're about halfway through the field run, we're going to see how drivers go about attacking that. How about this, Kenneth? The Ivory Coast, in the 89th minute of the game in the World Cup against Ecuador, score a goal and could possibly be looking at taking this win here against the number 2 team in Combo Bowl competition.
Well, that is huge. I mean, I've been trying to have the game up on the left side of me, but my TV is not within viewing range. I'm just looking at the side of it right now, and I can only see a gray light hueing from the outside of the screen, so I have no idea what's going on in the game. Thank you for the update, by the way. Big time win for Cote d'Ivoire if they can get this one over Ecuador in a group stage match where they are all trying to beat Germany, who thrashed Curaçao a little bit earlier on today, 7-1. Watch this battle for a second. Now it's a 3-car fight. Van Schaik crossover attempt. Exit turn 2. Can't complete the pass. The Chili's car. 3 for me. Back into turn 3. And here comes Warren Kyle Keith trying to take away 3rd off the final corner.
And Warren Kyle Keith has really driven a good last couple laps to get close enough into this battle, and now he might be taking away that 3rd spot ahead of Van Schaik. So really good run here once again by the 24, Jaden Porter. I mean, he really loves Chili's. That triple dipper I think is something I would like to get. I think you like the triple dipper as well. It's a very good meal option. He probably DoorDashed or Uber Eats a bit of Chili's earlier today with how much he's on the move.
And he's been rocket ship fast so far, but he still has not been able to put a candle up to Cedric Hunter. Gap has extended tenfold, 3.7 seconds that ride between the Hunter machine and now this attempted fight for 2nd place. So all of a sudden, what was just a 2-car breakaway in Van Schaik and Porter has easily blossomed into a 4-car quartet at lap 48. So this is far from over, Francisco, and the intensity continues to pick up, and Keith continues to demonstrate his speed. I think he is hungry, not only to grab a bite of that Chili's car in the run for 2nd, but also just to get back at that 45 car, knowing what happened at Pocono last Sunday. He's hungry for another shot to go mano-a-mano again. It may not happen before this first screen run is all said and done, but he can at least get close, and this car on rails off of turn 4.
I have a theory here, Kenneth. Are you ready to hear it?
Okay, what you got?
Okay, so our only full-time Toyota entry is Cedric Hunter, right?
Okay.
Ever since he's gone on this little streak last couple weeks, it has coincided with the Toyotas in the NASCAR Cup Series having completely outrageous speed, and at the same time, Cedric Hunter is showing speed that we have never really seen this season. So, is there a secret sauce that the Toyota might be having right now, and clearly nobody else has tried experimenting with it?
I have no idea. You know, Francisco, this is one of those things where in iRacing, there is theoretically no advantage to having either manufacturer, right? The aerodynamics are technically different in the way that the bodies are built, but obviously they're meant to be equal so that you can run any car and still be fast. But it seems like something is being fed into this Cat 5 Esports camp, because ever since Cedric Hunter has taken on mid-regular season form, he's been the best that we've ever seen him. Given he's won multiple races already this season, but we have not seen quite dominant type of racing that we've seen from this 45 car all year until now. So it really has been a case of Hunter's been the best driver by a long shot, and he's enjoying a near 5-second advantage as he lets David Duran on by. We did see that 98 car come down pit road. Did have some problems a few laps ago, so he is falling a lap shy, and he is trying to regain some of that track position on strategy. Maybe it is, Francisco. I mean, you've been very happy to see Cedric wear the Toyota banner after no other driver really does so in this series, so there might be something up Hunter and Hall's sleeve, the crew at Cat 5 Esports, that we don't know about.
Maybe there's something up there. When I hit the track, my Toyotas are always pretty quick, so we'll see if their race team is preparing similar enough setups here as the weeks go on, as the tracks continue to come on. Warren Keith, though, he's putting up comparable lap times, even though the gap is 5 seconds. He is very much doing a good job here of trying to drive his way through, and now Jaden Porter's in a bit of a battle right now. There's Stephen Harlow that appears to be going up to his inside, so I'm not sure how much of this is Porter maybe using up the tires that he had to get through the traffic initially, and now is suffering a little bit on the back end. The good thing for the Jaden Porter machine is a little bit further back is Van Schaik. They have about 5 seconds back to Chuck Stevens, who's in 6th place, so there's a large gap as the slide job effort there from Harlow to get back ahead of the 82 machine, as those two have dropped positions. Let this kind of work itself out. I want to get a talk here with this 82 here in a few minutes and see what's going on behind that race car.
Well, we'll have a chance to. I mean, you did say he was open to pre-race or during race interviews, right?
Yeah.
All right, well, I mean, this could be the chance. So we get an opinion. There's Stephen Harlow bringing his way back into 3rd after a bit of a drop-off there with the likes of Porter and Kyle Keith. But Harlow has done a nice job, and, of course, we mentioned that runner-up finish from Phoenix last season where he fell short to the DBR Chevrolet of Eric Schaefer. And so Harlow doing a good job of recovering now. It is WarriorSword.com Chevrolet, one of the few Droppin the Hammah team drivers in this race. Of course, Steven Stepien not here tonight. He is on a plane right now over North Carolina. So we wish safe travels to Steven Stepien as he's taking a trip down to Florida, Fort Lauderdale. That's where you and I are from, almost nearly about 30 minutes up the road, but still great. He's celebrating the weekend and gonna enjoy the sun and the warmth of Fort Lauderdale. Hopefully the weather collaborates with them, because, I mean, it's been bad in the summer, I've heard.
Yeah, it's been raining the past week. It's expected to rain a lot more this upcoming week, but I mean, it's Broward, Kenneth. I mean, no matter what anybody says, and I'll tell you, I love Hollywood Beach. Broward is Broward. They're not Dade. We don't claim them.
All right, there's that beef for sure between Dade and Broward. I'm kind of on the cusp edge of that. I mean, I'm technically in Hialeah.
Were.
I was. That's true. And, you know, I'm still thinking in the past tense here. As we watched the battle for 4th, a build-up between Van Schaik and Jaden Porter back to turn 1. But, yeah, hopefully Stepien has a great vacation, some time in the sun. Hopefully the time on the beach is lovely. And then we'll see him in a few weeks' time when we return to action on June 28th. How about this fight? Porter and Van Schaik continue to remain right next to each other. Even though they've been fighting for second, they have dropped in the battle for fourth. But they have just remained on this battle with each other regardless. And both of these cars with tremendous speed. Van Schaik this time clears to the dogleg, and he'll make his way back into turn one. Why don't we get an actual alibi from the driver of the 82? Joining us now, driving from 5th place, is Jaden Porter. Jaden, how's it going?
It's going pretty decent. The end of this run did not go the greatest, but came from the back and worked my way up to the top 5, so hopefully we can have a little bit of a pit strategy and get up with Cedric.
All right, well, we're going to let you lock in here for a few seconds. We know you and Warren Kyle Keith just came down pit road, so we're going to let you focus in on this moment here. We'll get right back to Jaden Porter in just a few moments, but there's Cedric Hunter still in the race lead, not deciding to come in on pit road through 61, now 62 laps running here in this back out 225 from Phoenix. More calls down pit road. Van Schaik and Harlow have joined the fray, so those two coming in. Jaden Porter on the way out with Warren Kyle Keith. Again, they have fallen a lap down from the leaders, but that is, of course, just typical of running here at Phoenix, and a pretty decent stop for Porter. 14.5, 4 fresh tires, Goodyear Eagles, and the fuel on the way as well for the 82 car running in the top 5 for the first time tonight. All right, Francisco, well, we'll let you and Jaden have this conversation as Porter gets backed up to speed here in the top 15.
All right, Jaden, you saw that you drive your way up through the field after starting in the back. You got up to second. Back end of the run, it looks like you're struggling for tires. Did you take a lot out of those tires, you think, as you were driving your way through the field, or what were you sensing?
Most definitely. It kind of felt like Iowa, the first run, where I was good, and then I wasn't good the last part of it. So just got to take care of them a little better this time. I feel like now that I don't have to pass 20 cars, I should be able to do a lot better than I did that run. And the first run of the race is usually my worst run on tires for whatever reason. So hopefully I can adjust to that and try to contend for a win. I know Cedric kind of got out there at the end of the run, but hopefully we can do our best.
And we're seeing some split strategies here too. And the fuel window is about 90 or some odd laps, I believe. We have about 4 to 6 vehicles that have yet to really bring it down pit road proper, and you pitted there around lap 60. So what's the thought process behind this strategy, Cole?
I think for me, I would like to try to go as long as I can this second run, but honestly, if I'm gonna have any chance at Cedric, I'm probably gonna have to stick with 60s each run, which should make my last pit stop like 180, which honestly, with how much tire fall off is, it might be the better option to take tires again. So I don't know, depends on the gap, but right now I guess the goal is 60-60, but we'll see what happens.
Well, we'll try to let you lock in. You got a battle coming up on your hands with this 23, Jaden. Wish you the best of luck in the rest of this race.
All right, thank you, buddy.
There's Jaden Porter. A shout out to all of his supporters on Alpha Jaden, his Twitch channel. He's just now getting into the streaming bit, so shout out to all of his viewers there as he runs for net position. He was just getting around, or at least trying to get around, Stephen Harlow, who's running 9th right now. Only a few cars that have yet to come in on pit road. That extends all the way back to 6th place. And Justin Erb in the drive in his number 20 machine, but a huge gaggle of cars, all of them fresh tires or not, that are just weaving their way around each other. Porter now to the inside of the rookie Garrett Walden, one of those 6 cars that still hasn't come in alongside these Hugh Cypress Racing Academy Chevrolets, Charles Stevens and Jesse Whittington.
See this 3 wide battle for a moment there as there's almost contact with Duran and the 6th machine as that got really tight there. Porter almost cruising up to the back of Duran, so you have a couple of cars just kind of all around each other on that particular part of the racetrack. It kind of settles on out. There you see the race leader, and further back there's the gaggle of cars behind Stephen Harlow as Porter now peeks to the inside of Duran for that position. Going into turn number 1, there's Charles Van Schaik getting ready to try and tackle this as well. And I'm wondering, Kenneth, how long does it take before our top 5 eventually bring it down pit road? Actually looks like Charles Stevens brings it down pit road as I say that. So that leaves our top 4 of Hunter, Whittington, Walden, Muscarella. as our 4 cars yet to really pit under this green flag strategy. They're going to lose time right now, of course, being on the older set of tires. The tires are making about 1 to 1.5 seconds per lap advantage since they brought it down pit road, but then that swings the other way into the advantage of Hunter, Whittington, Walden, Muscarella when they bring it down pit road. They'll probably be about half a second to a second lap quicker because it won't be as huge of an advantage as, say, a 60 lap set of tires with new ones, say, 20. But I'm curious, are they running it long, hoping that they don't fall into a caution?
Well, it almost seems like the case. Top 4 now have stayed out. Hunter, Whittington, Walden, and Muscarella. That counted 71 green flag laps that they have completed on their set of Goodyear Eagles and the tank of fuel. So they are comfortable in the strategy, it appears. No chance of saving for them. But then you think of Cedric and where he sits right now. He's the race leader. He has obviously not given a spot down on pit road at all because he hasn't visited pit road yet. But he's enjoying a 17-second gap over the second place car in Jesse Whittington. Add that more time between all those other net race position cars that have yet to fully unlap themselves 5th on back. I mean, we usually mention a pure overcut strategy. If you're going too long would be a negative thing. But in the case of Hunter, is it maybe that exception to the rule as he slows down and enters pit road this time by? Nope, just staying out of turn 4. Almost thought he was slowing down there on the inside of the racetrack. But would this technically be an inherent advantage, just knowing the gap that Hunter has right now?
When you're out front by that much, you can do whatever you want. It becomes a little bit easier to do whatever strategy you want because you have the advantage. So I think Hunter is in the spot where you could say, okay, it makes sense, go all the way, pit at the end of your fuel window, put on tires. Even if he loses time, Kenneth, he's probably going to be, I would say, no further than 5 to 10 seconds behind the current leader of those who have already stopped, which is Warren Kyle Keith. And even if the caution comes out now, you've trapped them all a lap down. So it's really, in this position when you're as fast as Cedric Hunter, really there's no correct choice in this point in the race. Just do whichever one you feel is going to work out best for you. And there it is. Pitting here on lap 75 is the choice for this 45 machine.
Finally makes that call. Bottom right-hand corner of your screen is where the race leader, Cedric Hunter, is in. Jesse Whittington catching up through about 11 seconds of time to be able to go around. However, we will see whether that 94 car does visit pit road. Garrett Walden also, for the moment, staying out. Looks like Whittington will go the extra lap, and so will his teammate in Walden. So those two, alongside Muscarella, the longest tenure cars on the racetrack right now, trying to stretch it as long as they can. Hunter is in this time by, finally reaching the pit box. On the left side of your screen, battle for net race position number 2. Warren Kyle Keith gets around Muscarella in 4th. And it's Harlow and Porter going at it for right now, position 5 on the racetrack.
And it looks like this is the kind of strategy that the 45 of Hunter wants to be in. You see him exiting the lane there as they go by him on the front straightaway. He's in a position where he can only stop one more time in this race. Everybody else is probably going to have to stop twice because of the way they're giving up this strategy call. So they're looking to try and make up almost a lap's difference on Cedric Hunter on this strategy. I'm not exactly sure, even with the tire fall off that there is, I don't think there's enough to make up a whole lap's worth of difference here. So it's very, very intriguing to see what they do and how they commend their strategy. Look at Hunter, he's only 2 seconds behind Van Schaik, and he's going to close in relatively quickly, and he'll be all over the back bumper of Warren Kyle Keith in not too much time. It's about 7 seconds on that front as well. So we're going to see how it goes, how cautions may or may not unfold here as the time continues to tick. And here's your current race leader, Jesse Whittington from Garrett Walden. Those two have yet to bring it down pit road. They're going to have to stop at least one time in this race, and it's most likely going to end up being 2 stops. You can't quite one-stop this race. But I think they're just trying that moniker of let's extend it as much as we possibly can and see what kind of strategy goes our way.
Yeah, those are the teammates, of course, both of them pretty well off in points. Whittington a few weeks back was on the cusp of being eliminated in the top 12 and having to work his way back up points-wise in this regular season. But we have noted the accomplishments of this number 94 Chevrolet, what Whittington has been able to do in his rookie campaign. He started off his season with a mid-pack finish. Every single race since then, for the most part, he has gained in. So he eventually got up to a career best second, did it for back-to-back weeks, and then at Pocono last Sunday, fell one spot at the end, but still finished in third, and told us after the controversial finish of the pit road sequence that happened at Kansas while he was in the lead late, very elated that there was no drama in that third place finish at the Tricky Triangle. So he's been happy with the points finishes. He's been very proud of his driving style as of late, and obviously lots of great finishes to show for it. Whittington putting on one of the good rookie seasons that we're seeing this year. Garrett Walden, his teammate, though, has found his way on pit lane. So the Walmart Chevrolet is in. That leaves Whittington as the final driver to make his pit stop after 81 laps in this back out 225. There's the 43 car of Walden in and out as Warren Kyle Keith chasing him down. 9.1 seconds between the two cars. And again, just waiting for that moment for car number 94 to visit pit lane and the lead to switch hands. It's a 4-second gap between Warren Kyle Keith and Cedric Hunter in the fight for the net race lead. That difference on tires, 15 laps to the betterment of Hunter, Francisco. So there's a lot of time that this 45 car will gain in a very short amount.
There's Keith, who only sits about 3.5 seconds ahead of Hunter right now. In a few laps' time, that's the 45 that will get past Keith. So I don't think, unless Whittington were to pit on this lap, which he isn't, it'll be very tough to say that Warren Kyle Keith will even get to lead a lap before the 45 gets around him. That last lap, Keith ran a 27.8, Hunter ran a 27.1. 0.7 of a second difference. That's only a handful of laps that on one single hand that you can count before you expect that 45 to get up there and make that pass with ease. I know they had their history from last week, but I don't think this is an instance where you see that 24 show some retaliation efforts. Nothing crazy, even if you were to. Just not exactly the situation where if you were Warren, you'd exactly want to use that card on. You just kind of realize the situation. He's multiple tenths of a second quicker. It's early in the race. I'll just let him get by me and try to figure out how I can make this strategy work.
Well, we do know that Warren is a hard driver to pass on the racetrack, but you're right. Tires are too big of a difference here where that speed is going to go way in the hands of Hunter, and it's going to look very obvious. I mean, there's going to be a huge speed difference, half a second. Gap is crunched down to 1 second and 7/10 between the Toyota and Ford Mustang Dark Horse, and so those two will eventually trade positions. Now trading positions with Keith and Whittington. It's for the lead. So finally, after 85 laps, a lengthy green flag run, Whittington has called his run to a close, and he's on pit road for his routine service. We'll see where he falls, but of course, all that tire advantage later on might be the betterment for car number 94 as he is in and into his box for the first time tonight. Under green, still here from the virtual Phoenix Raceway in this back out 225. It's been a lovely one so far. We're happy that you've joined us so far on the KBueno Racing Network, but do not go anywhere. More coverage of race 13 in the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series from Phoenix on the other side.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Today's Pop-Tarts are tasty.
Maybe Pop-Tarts do belong on the tailgate table.
Pop-Tarts, a lineup you can eat.
There's only one fuel that can drive the performance you demand from your car. New 94 Octane, the highest octane on the market, only at Sunoco.
And back live from the virtual Phoenix Raceway, joining us for the Backout 225, race 13 of the 2026 Dropping the Hammah Cup Series season, as we continue our coverage on the KBueno Racing Network through 91 green flag laps, no yellows so far. Cedric Hunter, the current race leader. There's Jesse Whittington trying to cut through the net race cars in third and fourth of Stephen Harlow and Jaden Porter. Kenneth Bueno and Francisco Bacallao with you as we continue on here in the Phoenix Desert. And boy, this one has been all about strategy. We saw Whittington go the longest of anyone in the field, 85 laps, while Cedric was the longest tenured driver to stay out amongst those who have been fighting for the lead, or at least have been in the contention for the top 5 all night long. Now Hunter has at least 15 laps better of tires than the driver behind him in Warren Kyle Keith, at least 15 laps, or rather 14 laps better than the driver in third place of Stephen Harlow. And that gap really just continues to open up as things shake out through the rest of the top 10. Hunter, Francisco, I mean, we cannot express this enough, has been the driver of the regular season, back-to-back wins at Kansas and at Pocono, and now looking for a historic third straight, will be the first since Lawson Peel in Season 1 to do such a feat.
I think he's mimicking kind of the same arc Denny Hamlin's been on in real life. I mean, Hamlin's won the last 2 times we've raced in the Cup Series, so has Cedric Hunter. They got some dominant third wins today, and in all 3 of them, they've just been so fast that nobody just comes close. And even if someone does, it just hasn't been quite to the same level. So Cedric Hunter and the Toyota in general has just been there for him, and he is executing. He was good in Season 1, Kenneth. He did not have a bad Season 1. He was up there in contention to try and win the championship. Got that victory, his first career victory in Charlotte in the playoffs. But we had Lawson Peel, and Lawson Peel is also a really, really good driver. Not many drivers got a win last time, but without Lawson Peel, the question was always who kind of fills that gap, who's able to take those race wins without Lawson in this field. And clearly Cedric Hunter has been able to step up to the plate, and he is really showing exactly what he's capable of.
He's been a tremendous talent behind the wheel so far, and it's no question that he's been able to really put on a clinic for the rest of this field that is just trying to find those answers on how to beat car number 45. And you also think as well about the tenure through the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series and what it has entailed over all of these last few months and all of the changes that have encountered the drivers on the iRacing service. We talked about increased power. That was a brand new feature to the sim not that long ago, where you can add 10% of power to all of the race cars' natural horsepower output. So we went from 670 horsepower at the intermediates to 737, and that has been a welcome change for Cedric Hunter. I mean, that is adaptability at its finest for someone who already was good before the update to now be even better at the turn of the update with more power and a harder to drive race car. Hunter has been on the rails. And although he's dropped a few spots in the points through the regular season after missing a few over the campaign, his tenure in the late half has become a resurgence. He's now in the top 5 in points, and obviously would be not surprised to see the 45 car into the top 3, either after tonight, if he does take the checkered flag, or at least by the time the regular season is all said and done. And most importantly, Francisco, Brandon Banks is not in this field. The points leader, who has been the most consistent driver of the year, he's not in attendance tonight at Phoenix. We don't know why, but regardless, it does shake up the landscape just a bit, and it helps someone like Cedric to be able to extend his advantage over all the drivers he's passed in points, and also just to slowly bite into that gap that Brandon has built so far through his body of work this year.
Yeah, Brandon, fortunately, with how big of a points lead he had entering the night, he's not going to lose the points lead, and especially because Steven Stempion, who is in second, isn't here tonight either. Unfortunately for Steven, he doesn't have that same kind of gap to work with, so he is definitely going to lose second in the standings to Garrett Walden, who was only 11 points behind entering the night. But Walden might not take over second. He might just get the spot on Stempin because Hunter's been dominating all night. He could jump his way up into second. Porter, if he continues this strong run here, same thing with Charles Van Schaik, they could possibly wind up in the top 5 spots. So it's getting really tight up there. And you look at the standings to a greater extent, really from Porter down to Kevin Roy in 12th, it is really tight within the confines of the chase. You look at the bubble area and those below it, and it really starts to balloon out. So at least up until this current point in time in the standings, it really does look like those currently in the chase are our best drivers of the season.
We haven't seen a gap that large to the top 12 in a little while. So as that continues to open up and that red line of death, as I would call it, starts to creep up in the back half of the top 20, I mean, that is going to play a huge role into those that are literally scrapping for survival just to even have a chance at making the chase come in regular season, let alone be in the top 12. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all shakes out. Of course, still a little while to go. 7 races, including tonight, that we have left before we close out the regular campaign and go championship chase racing in the Droppin the Hammah Cup Series for season number 2. Watching a battle just inside of the top 10, and the first driver that's out of it, that's the red, white, and black Chevrolet of Kip Easley, making a change this year from number 8 to number 27. The Missouri native obviously making that number change in honor of the late Kyle Busch. Easley would run the Kyle Busch RCR paint schemes for the season, and especially late season 1 as well. But has, of course, given up the number, has preferred this Jordan Anderson Racing number 27, and so easily trying to preserve a top 10 run as he watches the battle for 9th build-up right in front of him. That's the Daniel Holdcroft Ford Mustang and the bright yellow and blue Red Bull Dollar General Chevrolet of Alex Muscarella, getting to the quarter panel of Holdcroft, near contact as they rubbed off turn 4, but Muscarella swoops on by back to turn 1.
And that Dollar General machine sliding in front of Daniel Holdcroft to lose the nose of his race car. Really intense racing here, and that's for the 9th spot on the racetrack. As you see further back, Holdcroft and Easley now. That's for top 10 position, with Easley getting the best of Holdcroft, who tags the outside wall. And a lot of these drivers are just hanging on to the lead lap. You see a little bit further back there, Cedric Hunter. He's been closing the gap up on these cars, and he's looking to try and put them 1 lap down in this race, as we're almost approaching the halfway point in the night's event. We're going to have definitely less than the top 10 that fall a lap down in this race. Such is the pace of Cedric Hunter. And I'll tell you this as well, over the last few laps at the very least, it looks like Warren Kyle Keith is kind of matching Cedric Hunter. Now, I will say this is largely probably due to the fact that Hunter knows he has better tires and is just running a slower pace. Knowing, okay, I have a tire advantage, I have a big lead, let's just try and run no harder than I need to make sure I don't make a mistake in this situation. And he's catching up to these lap cars as well, so he has to be a little bit more careful than he would if he's in perfectly clean air. It's not going to be enough for Warren Kyle Keith to close the gap, but at least for the time being, he probably won't extend it all by that much, and I say that, and he was a 10th and a half quicker on that last lap.
I would agree with you on that assessment. Hunter does have the better tires. He wasn't necessarily pushing on the last run to make his way around Warren Kyle Keith. Yeah, I'm going to agree with you there. I don't think it is a over-pushed call for the 45. Probably just hanging it back, waiting to use the rest of it in store when he needs to at least maintain or open up the further gap. Although the gap has maintained at around 3.5 seconds, and it did open up that last time by just a hair, even though Hunter has been in the midst of lap traffic getting around Daniel Holdcroft, and what would make it a full 10 cars on the lead lap through a Phoenix race in this back out 225 that has gone, for the moment, all the way under the green flag. It's Hunter in the lead, Warren Kyle Keith running behind in second, Stephen Harlow finished runner-up here last season, runs in third, Jaden Porter not too far behind, so this might be the best close battle we have on the track in the top 10. That's the running for third, Porter fourth, Van Schaik has maintained top 5 since the opening run of the race. David Duran, rookie driver, has moved his way up to P6. Meanwhile, the battle for 7th and 8th continues. Justin Erb behind Duran and the 8th place car of Chuck Stevens. So never mind, this might actually be the best three-way battle we have on the racetrack right now. Alex Muscarella and Kip Easley are those final 2 that lock out the top 10 pretty soon, and now going to be the only top 10 cars on the lead lap through 111 laps completed under green. So it really has been a doozy. A lot of the drivers really just surviving at this point of the race. But it has been intriguing to watch, and especially more strategy on the way as well. There's Herb looking on the bottom shelf of Duran, makes the quick and easy pass through the apron and that dog leg. So I did want to talk about a few things as we've gone through this race tonight. Phoenix is one of those tracks that has been around for a long time on the iRacing service, but did recently get a refresh, so a facelift alongside all the other NASCAR Cup Series tracks, a part of the NASCAR refresh. We recently, in the iRacing build this past Tuesday, had an update through NASCAR. It wasn't exactly a NASCAR-centric build, but Chicagoland got an art refresh, which is a very big deal. NASCAR going back to Joliet, Illinois after a few years in downtown Grant Park for the Chicago Street Course race. So Chicago getting its much-needed refresh after that track has been around for ages on the sim. But even more so, Coronado, the Qualcomm Circuit in San Diego, the naval base, is finally come to life, and it's on the sim now, right before the real-life Cup Series drivers and the rest of the NASCAR stars will take it on in the coming weekend after Pocono concluded this afternoon. So, Francisco, what do you think about Coronado? I mean, it's a brand new street circuit. I've heard a lot of feedback. I've driven many laps there, but what do you think of the track so far as it's been released on iRacing?
Well, I've not really driven it proper. I think I've maybe done a half a lap, and that was it. That was the only attempt I even gave at the racetrack, and even that half lap, extremely bumpy, and it kind of gives the kind of track you would see, say, in an IndyCar schedule with the way the corners are, how bumpy it is. It feels kind of a mix of Belle Isle and the new Arlington track with how long it is and the straightaways and all that. So I'm interested in seeing how NASCAR does perform there next week. We'll get an assessment during our Father's Day event over at the Coronado Naval Base. But I mean, I think it's fair to say no matter what goes down, SVG has to be the favorite for every race he's entered in next weekend, right?
I mean, yeah, you put a road course on the schedule, and now SVG is just pretty much the winner before you even drop the green flag. So, I mean, maybe other than COTA, Circuit of the Americas has been the one blemish on SVG's road course racing career, but yeah, you think of new road courses, you think of expansion in NASCAR, you think of a street course, and my head immediately goes to Australian Supercars, and who did Australian Supercars really well? Shane Van Gisbergen. So no surprise, he's probably a contender to win, probably will win that race, just given the historical context of his driving in the next-gen car on those types of tracks. I've driven it as of late since its release, and it is a tough cookie to drive. It is tougher than Chicago, and Chicago was pretty much a challenge when it first released on the sim. Coronado is maybe that plus 10. It is a tough track to drive. The bumps are nastier, a lot of very awkward corners that you really just have to get used to, and plenty of parts of the track where there would be good racing, and plenty of times where I don't even think you want to ponder the idea of having a car even staggered too wide, even though they are not actually side by side. So it is going to be fun to see how the iRacing community handles it as it's released on the sim. The Coke Series drivers race it in about 2 days' time on Tuesday, and then of course the real-life stars of NASCAR take it on the Naval Base Coronado weekend, June 19th through 22nd. So it's going to be cool to see the whole field through NASCAR take it on as we move on through this race here from Phoenix, which will not see Coronado on the schedule. It was a very late edition, and I don't think Droppin Hammah will be enticed to add any new tracks to the schedule. I would only say it does, Francisco, if Steven Stepien is good at it. But he's got some good tracks for the late regular season for him already, so I'm sure he's still happy anyway.
I mean, these guys are not road course guys, which is a shame. They only have the one road course on the schedule, and I've already mentioned it plenty of times before. Sonoma's not a road course I'm necessarily a huge fan of, and I remember talking one night to Warren. They made the schedule, then they realized, oh wait, we need a road course race on the schedule, and they wound up with Sonoma. I'm personally a huge fan of road courses in general. I love turning left and right. It doesn't matter which car it's in. I love doing it, but hopefully they get a couple more road courses next time.
Yeah, Sonoma being the only road course on the schedule, kind of a big shocker to me. I was expecting at least 2, but they added it mid-regular season. We're going to be in Sonoma in a few weeks' time after we get over Daytona, and the 2.5-miler in Daytona Beach, and then we'll go back out west to visit that Sonoma Raceway. Very beautiful track, by the way, also refreshed from the art team at iRacing, so it did get a brand new look, and it's going to be the first time we visit Sonoma since we saw the Droppin, or rather the SAC Cup Series visit Sonoma earlier in their regular season. Here comes pit stops here with 103 laps to go. And it's Stephen Harlow, the first driver to bite.
I don't know. This is just outside that fuel window, I think, and at 103, that's a long way to go on this fuel. He'll take a quick drink of water before he gets into his stall. He's very much like me. I always have one of those kind of water thermoses right next to me.
You got to be hydrated.
Especially when we do these broadcasts. We do a lot of talking. You see right there, I'm pretty sure he just looked at the tire wear right there. He glanced to the right side. He saw the tire wear, and he was probably telling himself, wow, that was pretty bad. And now he's got to get going on another run. 100 laps he has to go on this set if he wants to get to the end.
Well, remember, the longest run we saw under green tonight was 85. So that's 15 laps shy of the marker to make it at least to the end of this race, plus at least another lap. If you're thinking about the way that Harlow has put in this strategy, we have another call on pit road. Warren Kyle Keith is in as well. So we did see Warren go out a little longer, wanted the tires very early in the run, took the lead for a little while, and now the Target Circle Ford Mustang is in as the second taker. So that leaves us now with only 6 cars that are on the lead lap.
I'm not sure. I don't like these calls, Kenneth. I think they've driven themselves into a strategy where they have to pit one extra time than the faster car on the racetrack. And I don't think that these tires are giving them much of a chance. They're not even unlapping themselves to the point where you can say there might be a chance. There's not even a situation, at least with this call, that the cautions might go their way, because they're sitting here a lap, maybe almost 2 laps down. So a bit interesting to see that this is the way they're headed. I know it kind of lines up with what Jaden said earlier about 60 laps and 60 laps. But even Jaden and Porter himself, he's now extended this run. He's gone past 65 laps on his stay. I think he realized that he has to extend this run so he doesn't add an extra pit stop to his race. So I'm not sure these drivers, apart from Cedric Hunter, haven't really accounted for that.
Well, it almost looks like for the likes of Keith and Harlow, if they want to try and short pit just to even out their strategy a little more and not make it as clunky in the final run. But again, yeah, I do agree. Very interesting call to see them pit as early as they did. You were probably expecting them to go just a little bit longer before eventually they came in. But they see something that we don't right now. They see a potential opportunity to gain more track position as a result. So it's all a matter of time and, of course, a matter of when the rest of the field cycle is out. And as you watch Cedric Hunter, that bright pink Hello Kitty Toyota Camry move his way through the pack, there are a few lap cars that are still in the lead lap now, but are at danger of falling a lap shy. The bright yellow machine up in front of the road, that's Alex Muscarella. He's the last lead lap car in 6th place. Then further up the road is Justin Erb, a few car lengths. He's in 5th. Chuck Stevens is a few car lengths in front of Justin Erb, and he's running in 4th. So we're looking at a near full field that has put a lap down or more, and that will leave only 3 cars on the lead lap if Hunter is able to get by all of them. That is, of course, a big if. Hunter's still working now on what is going to be Muscarella, who just got passed by the progressive Ford Mustang of James Kunkel, who is now a lap down on the track. And Justin will call his turn to pit road. So will Chuck Stevens, and so will Dana Shepard up the road. So more cars in the top 10 are in with 97 laps to go.
As the laps go on, it starts getting closer to that range of, can you make it? We've seen fuel mileage games here on the KBueno Racing Network at Phoenix, and we've seen some historical events. There's Jaden Porter, who now pits with 96 laps to go. That's 68 laps that he's gone. Again, I'm not sure if they're pitting knowing they can get to the end. I would hope so. I sure wouldn't like to pit with 96 laps to go in the race and find out I'm 5 laps short. That really would make it uncomfortable, especially if you know when the race leader Cedric Hunter can easily pit one more time in this race, and you're questioning being able to do so. Hunter's 55 laps into his stint. Even if he pits in 5 laps, he's in a lot better of a situation of getting to the end of the distance, but he's probably got 30 laps of fuel in the bank to play with, and that'll get him plenty to go to the checkers. There's Porter dropping the jacks. He'll get underway. That leaves 2 cars on the lead lap right now. That's Cedric Hunter and Charles Van Schaik.
So this is going to blow the strategy a little wide open for the rest of the field. And again, just really close markers, and a surprise that you're watching as many people coming on pit road a lot earlier than what we thought the bell would start ringing at. So a few more have come in. Cedric Hunter has elected his chance. He's staying out for the moment's notice. And it's just all down to the rest of the field to decide when they are coming in. Make that 4 cars that have yet to visit pit road. Hunter, Van Schaik, Muscarella, and now Jesse Whittington, who pitted around 46 laps ago. So Whittington can extend his range. We saw him go really long last time by, so we know at least for the moment he can make it on one final stop, and he'll be well more than enough through his run. Just depends on when he decides his time is going to be, but he can make it past 85 to go. Theoretically, that was his longest run, so he could do that again. As for Hunter, though, his overstretch of staying out worked out in his favor, got around Warren Kyle Keith on way better tires by 15 laps. So do you think, Francisco, here with 92 to go, I mean, is that the safe call for Hunter? Is just do what he did last time by because it worked and because he was still the faster car?
Yes, he's by far been the fastest car on the racetrack. He has almost the whole field put a lap down right now. And even with the fresher tires, they're less than a second a lap quicker than him. So why not? If the caution comes out, everybody's a lap down. You get to pit, and even if that happens, you just pull ride weight again. So there's no real reason, especially if they have to pit again. If they have to pit again, that is, you can effectively place the current running order as the probable running order. And right now, Warren Kyle Keith is slowly closing that gap up to Muscarella and Whittington for proper third place on the racetrack. All of this a lap down, I mind you, behind Cedric Hunter for being a lap down in the race. So Warren Kyle Keith, even with the possibility of an extra pit stop added to his race, will possibly get ahead of Muscarella and Whittington here. He'll end up third, but again, a lap behind the race leader on the racetrack, because if everybody does indeed pit one more time, you could effectively wipe out almost every car being on the lead lap. Charles Van Schaik is out there on the racetrack in second. He's going to be pitting before Cedric Hunter, and with the pace that the 45 has had, we very well could see a situation where he laps everyone.
Well, it looks like a cruise through the field for Cedric Hunter, and this is one of the first drivers trying to unlap himself alongside Muscarella. You're riding on board with Warren Kyle Keith right now. He can faintly see Cedric Hunter up the road off of turn 4. That pink blob you can see up the road, that is the race leader, so there could be a chance for those guys to unlap themselves here. But again, it just has been that dominant of a performance for Hunter tonight that it's been hard to argue against literally anything this 45 car has done as he's weaving his way around James Kunkel in the fight for what is third place on the racetrack. Continues to amp up in intensity. Down the bottom lane is Keith, swivels around, makes the move on the DTH Chevrolet of Muscarella off the final corner. Cedric Hunter, before Charlotte Motor Speedway and the World 600, which was the longest race of the season up until this point, until the finale, he had only led 54 green flag laps. Ever since Charlotte, he has led 208 entering this race, plus all that he's led so far tonight. So it has been absolutely a turning of the page for Hunter. And although he doesn't like to toot his horn too much while he's on our interviews, whether it be in the winner's circle or in the top 3, he keeps a sobering assessment of his pace. He feels comfortable within his driving style. And with the former series champion Zachary Hall right on top of the pit box, he's got plenty of experience and a winning pedigree on his pit strategy call. And I'm sure Hall is in his ear right now just telling him the right strategy to hold on to win this race. 86 laps to go. Hunter is now the last car not to have pit on this recent cycle. Charles Van Schaik is in.
And that will leave Cedric Hunter as the only car on the lead lap. See this battle on the racetrack. There's Jesse Whittington, Alex Muscarella, and those are for position. That's for third. Warren Kyle Keith already got past them, and they go around Justin Herb. Right now, Herb sits 2 laps down. Whittington slides up the track. That's Chuck Stevens, I believe, getting around them as well. Stevens also sitting 2 laps down in this race. Stevens is running a good race. He's 8th. But he's 2 laps down. It's such as the pace and the strategy calls that we've seen in this race. Warren Kyle Keith has just unlapped himself on Cedric Hunter. So with the 45's pit stop coming up soon here, it looks like the 24 machine will take the race lead, but it won't be for a long time. That 45 is going to run him down, and not to mention, we do expect to see that 24 back on pit road before the check is over, so it won't be a permanent fixture for that 24 to be leading.
I'm just hearing Drake in Warren Kyle Keith's ear. I'm here for a good time, not a long time. And Cedric Hunter is just very patient. He's maintained his strategy, and as it plays out for now, that is going to be the winning call, just based on what is left in this race. 81 to go at the start-finish line here in this back out 225, and we've gone all of the laps so far under the green flag. So it's been flag-to-flag coverage so far, and you haven't missed a beat here on the KBueno Racing Network as Warren Kyle Keith and Cedric Hunter enjoy rare air right now as the only two cars that are on the lead lap. So it's been one of those kinds of races, a short track slugfest, straight up survival that's needed. And this almost kind of reminds me, Francisco, of Iowa earlier on this season. You remember how that race went. A lot of tire wear. Warren Kyle Keith had pitted. We thought his race was over, and he still finished in the top 10 because everybody had tires blowing except for Cedric Hunter. He was the one car that maintained a level of pace that was good enough to keep the tires under him for an entire run and finished on the lead lap and won the race. And this just almost feels that way in the terms of longevity and strategy that you have to maintain tonight. That has been what is asked of the drivers. A lot of them have answered the call, but no one has had quite the ringtone as the 45 tonight.
Yeah, just for an idea here, Warren Kyle has about 50 lap fresher tires than Cedric Hunter. That last lap, he was less than a tenth quicker as, Dana Shepard must have hit the outside wall. You see the damage on the 44. He swings it to the bottom, pulls and exits the racetrack. No caution. That could have very easily been our first yellow, and that happened right on the lap of Cedric Hunter.
Oh, well, take a look. Dana Shepard was 3 laps down at the time. And this is as he was getting by Warren Kyle Keith, or rather Warren Kyle Keith seemingly got around him. Just sent it into the corner in front of Warren. So a huge
and then turns
hit.
right across the leader.
Yeah, he turned right across Cedric Hunter's nose. Luckily, there was no damage for the 45. Is there damage for Keith?
Right, what could possibly be some damage on Keith's right front? Here's the view from Hunter. You're leading the race. You're in control. This is the last thing you want to see out your windshield, especially here. Slams on the brakes, and wow.
That is unbelievable. A look from Keith.
You're going to see this dive here by the 44. Not exactly sure why the 44 was making that move. It was not for position. Shepard at the time was, like you said, running 3 laps down, and Warren Kyle Keith on the lead lap had fresher tires, possibly from a recent pit stop. But respectfully, Kenneth, I really don't understand.
Trying to get his laps back and just sent it too far into one. And they make the contact. It looks like he did escape with minimal to no damage on his Ford Mustang. Did slow up that car in enough time to be able to get it out of harm's way. So at least that's the good news. And he remains, like Hunter, the only cars on the lead lap. And I guess that is maybe the good thing about these two, and especially for Keith, is that he doesn't have to worry about third right now, knowing that there is at least a full lap between them with 75 laps to go. Right on the money. Francisco, here comes the leader. Cedric Hunter is in. James Kunkel to follow. That is the 12 machine of Kunkel, who's down 2 laps in 12th. But the race leader in. There will be a momentary baton toss. It won't be for long, but Hunter is in for what presumably is the final stop.
Yeah, Keith is working his way out of turn 2 now. He'll easily take the lead away from this 45. He'll get a big gap and all and everything. But Hunter's going to not only close down the rate by a big margin, the 24 still has to come back down pit road. He can't get to the end of the race. There's the pass for the lead. As Warren Kyle Keith heads off towards turn number 1, and service is still being done to the 45. But it's like we said, Ken. One, he's going to be fast, and he's really going to be closing in on Warren Kyle Keith. It doesn't matter that he's almost half a track behind. He's almost opened up a half a track lead in the first place. So this will be light work for Cedric Hunter to make up. He's down to 6th on the racetrack right now, 14 seconds off the lead. That's light change.
And the difference
For
in
him?
tires is even bigger as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He's got 30 laps better tires than Warren Kyle Keith, 67 laps better tires than Jesse Whittington, currently sits in second. He's got better tires than everybody in front of him by a wide margin. And I think the only driver in front of them that might, keyword might, be able to get to the end is Jaden Porter. And I don't think that any of them, for that matter, in front of him can safely get to the end of this race on fuel. So that's really the gap before he pitted. That's really the real margin. And he had 23, 24 seconds on Warren Kyle Keith. So good luck.
And Hunter doubled his tire advantage from the first run to the second run. He had 15 laps better tires than Keith. After the round of stops the first time, he now has 30 like we mentioned. So he clearly has found an upper echelon of continuing to add on to the momentum and the advantage. Alex Muscarella has hit pit road, although it came in very fast. Didn't know if he was on the verge of speeding to get a black flag penalty, but Muscarella is in from the top 5. It appears Jesse Whittington has gotten passed by Stephen Harlow. That's in the battle for second as it presumably runs, understanding that a lot of these drivers, for the most part, still have to come in at least one more time. Keith has at least 32 laps on his stint. 33 is working with Stephen Harlow. 69 to 70 laps is where Whittington is in his place. Jaden Porter, as we mentioned, the driver who's probably closest to Hunter on this kind of strategy, he's working lap 25. So even then, with 70 laps to go, you add up that tally, that is more than enough to be ahead of the fuel window that we have seen the drivers go on, at least as we've noted. So it really is just Cedric Hunter's world, and we are all living in it right now. Canadian flag on the back end of his Ford Mustang, or rather Toyota Camry. There is the American flag on the Ford Mustang of Warren Kyle Keith. Of course, dropping the Hammah, getting into the festivities of America's 250th anniversary. And what a year it's been so far. A lot of the festivities across the country and lots of wild things that have happened already. There's a planned UFC event that's happening, I believe, right now. They were delayed to weather, but that was a big event put on. Dana White and working in conjunction with the President of the United States having a UFC fight on the lawn of the White House. IndyCar going to be racing around the streets of Washington, D.C. in August, a planned Freedom 250 race. And, of course, FIFA World Cup going on right here, host nation, United States of America. Cedric getting into the festivities because Canada also hosting the events alongside Mexico. So all three of the North American nations taking part in the World's Tournament as it's happening this year. And this is parlaying right into what you wanted to talk about before we ended up in the entire pit cycle. The U.S. team 4-1 thrashing of Paraguay a few nights ago.
Yeah, it's called soccer, for those of you that didn't know. That's how it goes. That's how America is going to start playing the sport going forward. Hopefully, we did a good show against Paraguay in our first game. And I know there's going to be those naysayers out there that often say, oh, Paraguay's not that great of a team. Listen, in the qualifying process, they beat defending champion Argentina, and they beat one of the most difficult opponents out there, top 10 ranked Brazil. And they held all opponents to under 6 total goals. So if that's not a good team, I can't wait to see how the U.S. performs against a good team. We should be playing up against Australia this upcoming Friday. Hopefully the guys can get it done. Christian Pulisic, hopefully he can get on the board with a goal count. And hopefully the rest of Team USA can keep attacking like they showed that they can do. It's a completely different style of game, Kenneth. I've watched the past 2 World Cups in their entirety, and I know that the U.S. didn't make the 2018 World Cup. That was definitely a bit disappointing, but seeing how they played in 22 compared to now in 2026, it is electric, the difference of how you see these players going around the pitch. It's a different style. You can see the energy's different, and it all has to do with their brand new head coach.
Yeah, Mauricio Pochettino. Seems like he's done a great job with this U.S. men's national team squad as they continue to chase an entry into the knockout stage and hopefully make it past the first round. They were knocked out 3-1 by the Netherlands in their last trip to the knockout round after making it out of their group last time by in Qatar. And so, yeah, we'll see what happens. But if you did watch that Australia and Turkey match that was happening at the crack of midnight, as it took place in Vancouver, 3 hours behind where we are on the East Coast right now, I mean, that was a late night thriller between Australia and Turkey. It was a 2-0 win for the Australians. So looking like the Socceroos have a chance to put a fight up to the U.S. That might be a really good match in the coming week. So it will be fun to watch, and obviously the FIFA World Cup, such a celebrated tournament. Great that all three of the host stations this year have enjoyed the successes and some really great games over the first weekend or so of match play in the group stages, and still a lot more teams that need to play games and finalize their group. The group stage won't be done till June 27th. That is a whole nother 2 weeks of soccer that we get to watch before we even get to the idea of thinking about teams getting knocked out. And then when the games matter a ton in the run-up to the winning of the World Cup and the final at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. So that's going to be great. You know, we've talked about other sports while we're here on the KBueno Racing Network. Francisco, you're very famous for talking about other sports during these broadcasts when we just have nothing to talk about. But SAC Cup Series, we got into the activities of March Madness. We kept you up to date with all the scores that were going on when we had a broadcast during a set of games. So that was fun. Always good to kind of dabble in the rest of the sports world, as this race has been great so far. 60 to go at the stripe, and it's Cedric Hunter on track to pass Warren Kyle Keith. That gap, by the way, 4 seconds and less as we come across to the line.
To be completely fair at the same time, Kenneth, we haven't really had enough shows to really talk about the New York Knicks and their NBA championship run over the past 2 weeks as well over the San Antonio Spurs. They took them in 5 games, a series that Spurs technically dominated when you look at how much they led by, the time that they spent leading. But ultimately, their youth and inexperience showed, because the New York team, the Villanova Knicks, when it came down into the fourth quarter, Jalen Brunson and the gang, they did exactly what they had to do, and they came out on top 4 out of the 5 games and are now NBA champions for the first time in 53 years. So shout out to the New York Knicks on capturing that one. And to talk about a little bit of the World Cup and other sports as well, next week you got a pretty good weekend lineup. You're going to be back down here next weekend. You're going to the game that's going to be played in Miami. I don't remember which one that is right now. That's going to be on Sunday, as Stephen Harlow is going to bring it down the pit lane. This ties back to the different drivers needing to make a pit stop here in the late stages of this one. But you're going to be here for the World Cup game next Sunday, and you and I are going to the Marlins game on Saturday against the San Francisco Giants. So we've got a pretty nice weekend coming up.
I'm getting a healthy dose of Miami sports, even though one of them is an international match. But yeah, Uruguay, Cape Verde, group match, Group H. That's going to be really cool. And also some great teams that are going to be in Miami at the Miami Stadium during the tournament. So it's going to be a great weekend. Going to be a lot of fun. Droppin the Hammah Cup Series will not be racing next Sunday, but they will be back in action the following Sunday from the World Center of Racing at Daytona. And we do have more coverage, hopefully, for the SAC Cup Series on Thursday as they reach the semi-final round from Martinsville Speedway. First time we get to cover a race from the virtual paperclip in at least over 5 years. So that is going to be fun. Nate Polite, Mikey
Some
Neal.
memories there.
Yeah, it's lots of memories from Martinsville, good or bad, but plenty of memories regardless. They're all in the same bank in my head now. But semi-final race for the SAC Cup Series. Be sure to tune in with us then on Thursday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on the KBueno Racing Network. That'll be on June 18th as that happens. Droppin the Hammah Cup Series back in action on June 28th. Same time, 8:30, right here at Daytona. So Warren has the lead still. 56 to go. We did see Stephen Harlow come in on pit road. That is his final pit stop. We are expecting at least one more final stop from someone in the top 5, and that someone is Jesse Whittington, who's trying to capture his 3rd straight top 5 run, rather 4th straight top 5 run, and continue on a journey of consistency that has really turned up his resume entering the back leg of this regular campaign. As we watch some battles on the racetrack, Chuck Stevens, David Duran, as they go at it, entering turn 1. Closed off there in the first corner. Duran had to send it up wide and does. Hits the outside wall and right in front of the race leader. So there's more drama. Duran does hit pit road this time. And that was quite a scare once again for the race leader. But Jesse Whittington and Duran are in pit road this time by, and the gap between the leaders under 2 seconds.
By the way, just between a couple of pit stops and all, once again, only 3 cars are on the lead lap. That's those 2 on your screen right now, and Jaden Porter, who sits about 6 seconds behind Warren Kyle Keith out on the racetrack right now. Those 2 expected to make still pit stops before we reach the checkered flag in 53 laps, especially Keith, who is supposed to go apparently over 100 laps if he can get it to the end of the race. Everybody else has stopped. Everybody else is 1 lap down in this race. Charles Stevens is the highest running car 1 lap down right now. He's just behind Cedric Hunter, so he's going to see that 45 kind of drive away from him. Justin Erb, Charles Van Schaik, Alex Muscarella, they're in a battle for 5th right now, but again, they're just 1 lap down, but it's a great battle for a top 5 spot.
Has been fun to watch these cars in line. There's Dana Shepard, the DEP Racing Chevrolet, back in action after the scare into turn 1. Some big damage, but great to see Shepard at least back out onto the racing surface. He is 21 laps down, but he will still muster at least a 17th place position should he remain in the rest of this race. And he is the only DEP Racing Chevrolet that is in this field tonight. Of course, the drivers of Ethan Thompson and Jamal Pugh. Ethan getting his career best run at Kansas. Jamal Pugh winning Talladega Superspeedway outright in the final lap dash with a push from his teammate to the stripe. That was great to see that DEP Racing team. But again, a lot of missing names tonight. Of course, Banks is part of the marquee amount of drivers that are not here. But again, Pugh, Thompson, a few other notable drivers. Christian McCrelly is not in this race either. So there are plenty of big names in this series that just have not shown up tonight, whether that be a busy schedule or just maybe something else was in the cards for them tonight, and they were unfortunately not able to make this session. 50 laps to go. The lead has officially changed hands, and that is not because of outright track position change. It is a quick stop and go for Warren Kyle Keith. 14.9 seconds gets the Goodyear Eagles to make it to the end, and officially that will put only 2 cars on the lead lap. Cedric Hunter and Jaden Porter, who we understand could be very close to making it, but most likely Francisco will have to come down at least one more time.
Yeah, the only driver you can really guarantee getting to the end is the 45 of Cedric Hunter, and he's already taken over that race lead. So basically everybody else right now, they're just hoping they could be the first car 1 lap down in case of a yellow flag coming out. They could say, hey, I'm on the lead lap. I statistically have a chance. Jaden Porter is going to probably try to run this as long as possible for that very same reason, to hope that a caution flag comes out with him already on the lead lap. But it's just going to be very, very difficult to make that happen. Stephen Harlow's getting past him now. That's not for position. Harlow did already pit, if you remember. And he gets by the 82 machine. Has still some ground to make up if he's thinking about unlapping himself. That's about half, almost the entire back straightaway of a gap to the race leader in Cedric Hunter, and still some traffic even in between. So just some kind of pace that we've seen out of Cedric Hunter today that I don't think we've really seen at any other ovals. There's Walden going down the inside of Justin Erb. That's not for position, but Erb and Van Schaik is, and that's currently the battle for 4th.
2 top 10s in the last 5 races for Justin Erb. Plenty of great qualifying efforts, including his first career pole at the virtual Kansas Speedway, and an SKM Racing team that has really impressed Michigan. They led a bunch of laps together, whether it was Erb, Kunkel, Kevin Roy, Parker Bland. The whole team was out there feasted. They're doing well, and then things turned sour for Kunkel, or rather for Erb at the end of that Michigan race. Kunkel did end up in a spin to bring out the first yellow of the night, but Erb ended up in a pretty sizable crash off of turn 4 after there was a bit of drama at Michigan surrounding what was going to go down. And so he's in a tight-knit battle with Charles Van Schaik. They're getting around Garrett Walden, 3 wide, spread across turn 1. Made it work. Harlow makes the move on the inside. He wants more, leans on Van Schaik, and his battle for 3rd continues off turn 2.
And Jaden Porter is going to make the call down pit road as they're dooring each other down the back straightaway. But Stephen Harlow will take that spot away and officially move up into 3rd. And again, with Porter's pit stop now, that will mean that there will be nobody on the lead lap as soon as Cedric Hunter gets past him. That means Stephen Harlow, if he unlaps himself, he'll be the only other car to be on the same lap as Cedric Hunter. And, well, we've seen on the long run that the 45 is just very, very fast. So if the tires go off for the 6, it's going to be tough to see if he can get past the Cedric Hunter machine. Further back, Warren Kyle Keith now has to navigate through some of that traffic. There's Porter through his stall. He's officially been lapped. Now all eyes are on this 45 machine, as even a caution can't stop him right now.
Keep the eyes as well on this battle here for 3rd. Keith moves on by. Fresh tire power just over dominating the driver of the 23. Van Schijk should at least lock up a top 5 before this is all said and done. They're in the main menu to catch up to Stephen Harlow, who is again trying to make waves on Cedric Hunter. You think, from a first glance, this is the battle for the lead. But this is the battle to be the driver on the lead lap alongside Hunter. And he cautioned him to bring out the SKM Lucky Dog for this 6 car, assuming he can hold on to the position. But the tire difference is massive. 8 laps in favor of Warren Kyle Keith. So sooner but later, those 2 cars, Ford Chevrolet, will eventually have to engage in battle with 40 laps to go. And Cedric could just watch on. Doesn't need to worry about a single thing. He can make it until the end of this race, not only on tires, but on the tank of gas. He just needs to avoid any trouble, and there may be some banging doors in turn 1. Harlow got to be eager under the corner. Warren Kyle Keith makes his way on by, and again, this is to unlap themselves on the racetrack.
Yeah, again, not too sure about what that's all about. I know they're trying to unlap themselves here with 40 laps to go. They would still have to not only pass him here, but go around the entire length of the racetrack and pass him again in 40 laps. And well, let's just say that's not exactly on the cards, but at least by unlapping themselves, they'll get back on the lead lap, and a caution could bunch them back up into this. And I gotta say, Kenneth, this is something we've seen with some of these races that tend to go green flag. The field gets a little bit reckless the longer we go green flag. I almost start to hope that there's a caution flag, and this is not exactly speculation. This is just what we've seen. In certain battles, drivers seem to get a little bit more risky, more elbows out, and that's how we get those cautions that come around at the end of the races. We've seen it numerous times for it to be a proper trend. And I think right now Cedric Hunter is just going to let them go, not fight it too much. He doesn't want that trend to happen.
Well, in the mind of a driver, Francisco, when you go this long, what do you really think about? Is there a moment of maybe mini psychosis behind the racing wheel? Because again, last season we had stages, so we did eventually have manufactured yellows that brought a natural break in the action, even if the race went green, even if there were no cautions. But they've eliminated that for 2026. So as a driver, you see this race going green all the way with 37 laps to go. Does the mind wander a little bit while you're driving?
Oh, it certainly does. You end up talking about just about everything. I think the biggest comparison to that is when you're doing the iRacing 24-hour at Daytona, when eventually the whole session starts talking about everything. I think this year the best example was in our split. We managed to get Charlie, Keelan, myself, and everybody in the session to have the soup, sandwich, and salad argument and discussion. That was one of the things we talked about for a solid hour or so at about midnight during the 24-hour race. And your mind does tend to wander, so you lose a bit of concentration, your lap times fall down a bit, but as you get towards the end of this race, if you're not leading and you feel like you have a car that, given a restart, you can win, or even one of these guys that are a lap down just driving around the racetrack, again, you just kind of lose that focus and you start not caring, let's say, on what your actions might, consequences might result of from your actions. So that's how you end up with these late race cautions. It happens enough to the point where it really is a trend. We see it in every series when there's a long green flag run, big advantage for your race leader, drivers are in key positions where they need a break. There's always that caution flag that's ready to come out. So I wish I could say that I'm speculating, but I'm really not. I've been in that position. I can tell you that that's certainly what seems to happen.
At this point, you either start having wild debates about random things like we did with that soup, sandwich, salad debate with Charlie, which I'm going to forever argue he's wrong on that assessment.
Yes,
However, I mean, you think of how long the drivers have gone, and there also could be the idea of you almost forget you're driving. You're on autopilot mode, and maybe that could be attributed to the incidents or the semi-scares that we've had tonight with what happened with Dana Shepard, Stephen Harlow doing that. Not sure if it was out of desperation to unlap himself, but it might also be the fact that you've run this race so long, you start to kind of blur out the moments that are happening behind the wheel. And so you are still driving a stock car with 750 horsepower behind it. You can easily overshoot a corner, and when you got a car on the outside, could very well spell disaster. So it's becoming that point of the race where it has to be all about focus and maintaining your ability to drive the car at a high level. But of course, for several of the drivers, they know with 31 laps to go, if this race doesn't change in its complexion at all, most of the drivers are going to finish where they stand right now. Apart from this battle for 5th between Whittington on the outside, Van Schaik rolling on the bottom of his Ford Mustang. But for drivers like Harlow and Keith, maybe some others in the back half of the field, they know they are going to finish there no matter what. Think of a driver like Justin Erb, who's running 9th. He is the first driver 2 laps down. He has no one to fight with on the racetrack for outright track position. He's got Kip Easley behind him, who is also 2 laps adrift, but he's 3 seconds back. So there is no chance that they're fighting, at least right now. Erb knows this race goes green, he's finishing 9th. He is not going to gain a spot. He's not going to lose. He's going to stay where he's at. And so that mind easily can wander when you don't really have much to accomplish on the track other than just run it till it's done. There will be 28 laps to go here in this back out 225, where so far the headline is Cedric Hunter. No one has found a remedy to beat this 45 car, up by 20 full seconds and on the mark to be the only car on the lead lap. Just given with all this has happened throughout this race, however, only 3 remain on the lead lap. Make that 4. Hunter, Keith Porter, and now Stephen Harlow in the 6.
And Jaden Porter got past the Harlow machine. He's got better tires than Harlow and Keith, and he's gotten around them, and he's 4 seconds behind Warren Kyle Keith, so that could be the battle for second here coming to the end. Again, they just don't have enough time or tire life really in it to make any ground on Cedric Hunter. If this race was, let's just say for the sake of argument, about 30 laps longer, I would tell you that these guys are in a great position to compete for this win. But if the race was 250 laps, let's put it that way, they were in a great position to win. But it's not. So the strategy called for the extra pit stop. It just clearly wasn't there for them today. Maybe they felt like they had to. They tried to try something different. But you see the gap. It is 18.7 seconds. So even though they are closing with the better tires, it's 18.7 seconds and 26 laps to go, Kenneth. So something's got to give at that point. So I think at this point it's just competing for who can take second place away. Is it going to be Warren Kyle Keith? Can Jaden Porter run him down? That appears to be the way it's going to be going down here in the final stages of this race. And I will tell you the added bonus that you get with these long green flag runs and green flag racing, you end the night earlier. These are long races. We have 2 to almost 3 hour shows with less cautions. It wraps our night collectively all up for both drivers and ourselves.
Yeah, we think of the road courses as kind of the speed run rounds where there aren't usually thrown yellows on road courses. Even if there is trouble on the track, there is the exception to the rule of a huge parking lot pileup, but 9 times out of 10 that doesn't happen, right? So you do have just a plain green flag race. It depends on the strategy. You run it from flag to flag and you finish it in maybe an hour and a half or so. And that's right, tonight has been a long race. 225 miles is obviously nothing to scoff at here at Phoenix. But it's gone green so far through 202 and still going strong with 23 to go next time by. That, yeah, drivers can be wrapped up by at least 10:30 tonight and be ready to go to bed. This is a Sunday night, so a lot of drivers do end up in their work, their day jobs tomorrow morning. So it does allow them a little bit of extra time to sit back and relax. But they enjoy this passion of racing on the sim every single Sunday, and they've put on a great season so far. Tonight has been a pure example of green flag to flag racing that has been mostly respectful, all about strategy, and just pretty much running each other's race and being respectful of each other on the way. There's the race leader, 17 seconds clear of the next driver in line, Warren Kyle Keith. Jaden Porter runs 3rd, Stephen Harlow runs 4th, and Jesse Whittington currently wrapping up the rest of the top 5. And apart from just the outright dominance of Hunter and the possibility to go 3 in a row for the first time since Lawson Peel did it last season, Warren Kyle Keith entered tonight with 371 total points. That's good enough for 10th. He was still floating around that back end of the top 12 for the chase, theoretically coming into this race. He's got a 1 leg up on Richard Swabley, who was 11th in the standings entering tonight after his early exit on lap 29. Kevin Roy has been in this race, but he's maintained 2 laps down back in 12th. And Warren has been the fastest car other than Hunter tonight. So there is still tons of good points to gain for the driver of this 24, at least to gain on drivers like Kip Easley, Stephen Harlow, who's now 2 spots behind him in 4th. And for Jaden Porter, we talk about him missing a few weeks. Michigan didn't show up. And then last week at Pocono also couldn't make it, couldn't connect to the session in time. And so he had to just watch that one from the sidelines. A piggyback up off of the momentum he's carried all season long. And a nice rebound here in the desert.
And he could come away with a podium finish here when it's all said and done for Jaden Porter after missing out for 2 weeks. Those connection issues that they've been going on in their household, it has not been kind to him. But at least it happened in a time where there was a plentiful amount of off weeks, so it limited the amount of time that he was going to miss. And he can come back here, run tonight, get some points, get back in the right direction, and now start focusing on the second half of the regular season. We're off next week, but the next time we go out is Super Speedway action at Daytona. Porter had a good chance of taking the win there as well when we ran the opening race of the calendar. Brandon Banks was the actual race winner in that instance, who's not here tonight. He'll try to see if he can do something at Daytona to keep the points lead. He'll keep it after tonight because Stempion's not here. But if this stays as it is, Cedric Hunter will definitely move his way up into second in the standings and probably be within about a 20-point margin of Brandon Banks.
And that in turn makes the run for the championship oh so interesting. Storyline whole year long has been Brandon Banks and Jaden Porter, what they can do to one-up each other. Now that Porter's been on the back fall because of these last 2 missed races and because Cedric has now won back-to-back and looking for 3 in a row, while Brandon only has that 1 victory to his credit that came in race 1 at Daytona. It's been all the talk about what this Canadian can do to put himself back in contention for a title. Remember, he did make the championship 4 last season. He was in contention to win the title. It was both Category 5 Esports Toyotas that made it to the final round. And although Lawson Peel won 9 races and was clearly the favorite entering Homestead, it was Zachary Hall who took the race lead at the end. Hunter was right behind him on the charge. Those two finished first and second at the line. And it was Hall who ended up with the title. So Hunter is trying to make sure this team, although he is the only driver representing Cat 5 Esports this year to go back-to-back in titles, and he's very much on the path to be the favorite for the title, let alone just a contender. He gets around some of the lap cars. That's Garrett Walden and David Duran. Those 2 cars single file, not for position on the track. Walden back in 15th, 6 laps down, and Duran running in the top 8. Another great top 10 for the rookie driver in a brand new paint scheme tonight. The 98 in the WeatherTech colored car, almost similar to what Shane Van Gisbergen runs each and every week in the NASCAR Cup Series. And at this moment, it is just running it till it's done. 13 laps to go next time by, and this endurance fest is going to come to an end. Telemetry tells us 6 minutes if we stay green.
Hopefully there's no jinx going on here. We've been green flag for so far in the night. Warren Kalkeith sits 15 seconds behind Cedric Hunter, and Porter hasn't really made any inroads, so looks like the battle there is really not to be. There's no real battle on the racetrack right now. The closest battle, I guess you could say, is the battle for 8th, about 0.6 of a second separating David Duran and Justin Erb for the 8th spot. Those 2 laps down in this race. That's possibly the closest 2 cars are for position out on the racetrack. It's just, we've seen the field spread, we've seen the strategy. Incredible job really by all these drivers. This isn't the first time we've had a flag-to-flag race this season. The fact that almost every week there's a chance that we can see these flag-to-flag affairs is a huge testament to how clean our drivers are, but also how good they are to be able to do as long as of a race as we do and avoid making as many mistakes as we tend to see in some other series.
For sure, give the credit to the drivers for putting on types of these races. It can get hard when you're running lots of miles, when you're running really long races through the nighttime. You've got a next-gen car that is unpredictable, continues to change by the hour, it feels, on the iRacing service as real-life data continues to come out about this vehicle. and a schedule that, for the most part, very demanding, very long-winding. This Droppin the Hammah Cup Series career, it is far from a short season. It is a long drag through the summer, and then ultimately when we end the season in a few months' time, it is going to be whoever lifts the trophy at the end of it all in that chase group will have a season of hard work put around that body of work. And so to put any one of these long races all the way under green is such a great task, and a credit to the skill level of these drivers and the way they've been able to run respectfully with each other all night long, and just a demonstration, frankly, of what kind of community this series has. I mean, I like to talk about the old history of Droppin the Hammah before it was named that in 2025. I've had a lot of experience covering the same kind of drivers from 2021 when the MPI Cup Series began in 2020. Dakota Curtis made that a reality, and a few other owners have taken shape, and a lot of the drivers you're seeing here tonight were a part of that initial MPI Cup Series campaign in 2020. And then as the series evolved, you added new drivers into the fold. We had plenty of new storylines. And then when that series came to a close as the Sunoco Cup Series, then that's when Steven Stempian and a few others banded together to revive that idea, keep that same group together, add a few new drivers, and just go at it. Do the same thing. Race every Sunday night, run long races, run a good points format, and overall the intent to just have a fantastic season. And that's what we've had tonight. Although this season has been dominated by a newcomer, someone who did not race with this field back when it was called the MPI Cup Series or the Sunoco Cup Series or the SimMax Cup Series, but he's joined in the era of DTH, and he's surely made an impression. The Canadian this time will see 6 laps to go from Avondale, Arizona.
And at this point, he's just backed it down. His lap times for most of the times on the long runs has been 28 1s, 28 2s. He's running 28 3s. He's got 13 seconds with 6 laps to go, approaching 5. At this point, Cedric Hunter is going just as fast as he needs to get to the white flag, just to avoid any doubt. But in his mind, I think he knows that if he just takes it easy enough over the next 5 laps, that it'll be 3 in a row and 6 on the season. Could possibly find himself in a spot where he is challenging Lawson Peel's number of total wins from last season. That total was 9. And if he sits on 6 after this race, about halfway through the season, this could be a topic of conversation. We saw Ethan Fonseca Moreno in the 4-wide series get up to 8 wins throughout the regular season, and we thought, can he break Brandon Hawkins' win streak? Well, Ethan chose that he wasn't going to race anymore for a while. Then he came back, got another win to tie the record, but that was a wasted opportunity. I don't think Cedric Hunter is going to do that in this instance. So can Cedric Hunter go and get double-digit win counts?
You'll see 3 laps to go, final 3 miles here from Phoenix Raceway. And it was a big-time accomplishment to move from 3rd to 2nd on the all-time wins list when he passed Steven Maggio, who picked up 4 just in his rookie campaign alone. And Cedric at that time hadn't picked up a win yet. And then came Charlotte. The magic of the playoff run started then, picked up his first career win, and just carried that on in the championship 4 without winning another race. And then this season, coming across the line first at Iowa in a tire standoff when everybody was blowing tires left and right. Texas went his way on a late race strategy call. Charlotte and the World 600 went his way after a long green flag run. And then Michigan and Pocono coming in back-to-back fashion, both in dominating ways. And just when you think Cedric Hunter cannot be defeated, he finds another way to get back to the top. White flag in the air from Phoenix Raceway on a race that has gone flag to flag from top to bottom. All green flag and all about Cedric Hunter. As he comes through the back straightaway, shining bright, Cedric Hunter rolls through 3 and 4. It'll be 3 wins in a row for the Canadian off the final quarter. Cedric Hunter wins the back out 225. What a drive. And at the checkered flag, 4 cars on the lead lap. The season just keeps getting better. Good times continue to roll. And Cedric Hunter, long race put in tonight, all of them under green. And he will celebrate for the 6th time this season and for the 3rd time in a row. Cedric Hunter takes the win, his first career dub here at Phoenix. Dropping the Hammah victory lane, we'll see the 45 for the 3rd straight time, and he's the first driver since Lawson Peel in the inaugural Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series season to win 3 races in a row. Lawson did it when he won 4 consecutive races in the playoffs, and Cedric hoping he can just continue that level of momentum. Entering tonight, top 5 in the standings, just continuing to move up the ladder, and now purely a championship competitor and possibly one of the favorites to go at it for the crown at Charlotte later this season, a place where he's already achieved victory in the World 600. And one of the great things about Phoenix, you can drive into victory lane, and drive into victory lane, Cedric Hunter will do. Winner for the 6th time in 2026. So let's bring you the unofficial results after the end of this back out 225. All of the laps run and finished under the green flag. In a flag-to-flag affair, 13 seconds is what separates Cedric Hunter and Warren Kyle Keith. Hunter with his 6th win of the season and 3rd in a row. Very historic feat for the Canadian, who's now firmly in 2nd on the all-time wins list. Warren Kyle Keith ends up tonight in 2nd. Still some great points for the St. Augustine, Florida native. Jaden Porter back in 3rd. The Toyota, Ford, and Chevrolet round out the podium. We'll talk to all 3 of them before we close out our coverage tonight. Stephen Harlow ends up in 4th. He is the final car on the lead lap. That is something we usually don't say in races like these, but it was just one of those types of races. Jesse Whittington closes out a top 5 and continues his consistent streak of nice points. Charles Van Schaik a lap down in 6th place. Alex Muscarella, the final car, 1 lap down in 7th. Before you find Justin Erb, David Duran, and Chuck Stevens to round out the top 10.
11th goes to the 27 of Kip Easley, with the 22 of Kevin Roy finishing in the 12th spot. James Kunkel, strong night in 13th. 3 laps down, though, with Casey Knighton in 14th. Garrett Walden gets a top 15, 6 laps down. Dana Shepard in the 44 finishes 16th. Daniel Holdcroft in the 17th spot. I think he may have left the session there towards the final couple laps of the race, finishes 17th. Richard Swavely had a good early portion to this race. Contact resulted in him leaving the session, finishes 18th. Brad Fulham in 19th. That's not me. I swear I didn't run this race. I'm not 20th, but I guess you can call Phantom 20th and 21st unofficially Timothy Stubblefield.
Well, that'll do it for the race results tonight after 225 green flag laps. Welcome in to our KBRN post-race show, where in dropping the Hammah victory lane for the 6th time this season and for the 3rd time in a row, we are joined by the driver of the number 45 Toyota in Cedric Hunter. Cedric, I'm not sure if you expected this race to go green. We didn't, but it's 3 races in a row in absolute dominant form. Is there anything that feels wrong right now? Because it just feels like there is nothing wrong in Cedric World in 2026.
Yeah, man. Everything about winning feels right. So, no, I wasn't expecting it to go green, but, you know, I figured that I was going to try and run it and do a 2-stop. And to be honest, that when we did go green for the first 60 laps and then people started pitting, I was kind of scratching my head. I figured, you know, if you could reduce the, you know, take out one whole pit stop, then you'd be, you know, it's the better strategy. And I think there was only 1 or 2 or 3 of us that actually, you know, went that route. So glad it worked out. I was kind of worried that I was gonna, you know, if Akasha was to come out, it was gonna, you know, come out at an unfortunate time for me. But we're very fortunate and lucky with a green race. Never expect that from Phoenix, but it's always fun to have. So it was a lot of fun tonight. Consistency, man, was key. Trying not to roast the tires, hitting the line or your marks every single lap, and it was a long one. My wrists are sore after that one.
I'm sure it did feel like a long one, especially with no yellow flags, and one that, again, a track where I'm sure you and all the drivers also expected there to at least be one yellow. But let's talk a bit about this strategy here. You went longer than anybody else in terms of the contenders for the top 5 at the time, and you also pushed it long. You extended your advantage there in that second stint just to close out the final run until the end. What seemed to work about the overcut strategy and making sure you can let this car outlast the rest of the competition, especially as this race got into its deeper stages?
Yeah, the fall off was like you plateaued pretty good on like the longer run. You maybe dropped off an extra tenth or two, but for the most part you're running similar, pretty much the same lap times for the last 40 or so laps of the run. So so I didn't really understand why people were pitting, but I mean, I'm obviously thankful they did. My plan going to this race, I didn't really have a strategy, honestly, when we graded up, but I just kind of figured, hey, let's just, do the least amount of pit stops and hopefully it works out. And again, thankfully it did. We didn't have Zach really on top of the booth tonight to help us out with strategy calls, other than the very end when he was just keeping me company. But, so that one, I guess, was straight off the dome.
So this race goes flag to flag. You lead the most laps of anyone tonight, and we talked about 208 laps led over the last 4 races compared to 58 that you had in the run-up leading to those last 4. What has turned on for you in the right time, whether it just be the strategy, either the driving style, or just a combination of those factors, the gears in the machine, to create such a dominant late regular season push as the chase continues to creep up?
Yeah, it was just confidence. We, it kind of honestly all started off, give or take, about a month and a half-ish ago. I just kind of, I had a week, I think it was the Charlotte week over here, where obviously we won this one, and then I went the next night in a different league and won that one, and then the week after we came back and finished second championship in a different league, and then we obviously still did good over here. So it was just momentum and confidence, and thankfully it all builds up and it helps out. You go into these races kind of just knowing that, hey, as long as I can do what I'm doing, then we're guaranteed hopefully a good finish, and that's kind of what we've been doing. And obviously doing well before the playoffs. I'm really fortunate that a couple of guys couldn't show up that were above me in points, or even I think Garrett tonight had connection issues and dropped out. So we're making good gains on the top 3. I think we should be in second now in the points. So, just keep doing what we're doing. Hopefully we catch some lucky breaks with guys just having a little bit of misfortune or plans outside of racing. So, our goal up until the chase comes around is just to hopefully get in first and hopefully align ourselves in the best position possible going to the chase.
Well, Cedric, Daytona next up, 1 week off next Sunday, and of course, probably all the momentum in your hands. But before we let you bounce in, dropping the Hammah victory lane, once again, anybody you want to give a shout out to or thank for tonight's run?
Yeah, man, I want to give a huge shout out to my wife and daughter for again supporting me as they do. Shout out to you guys for everything you guys do. Francisco, it's great to see you in the booth again, man. As always, look forward to hearing back from you guys when I rewatch this race. Shout out to all the fans out there, the admins for putting this on, the drivers for showing up and putting on good races. Again, props to everybody for making it go green, man. It was a fun race for a track that I'm really not a fan of. It's probably in my bottom 3 for just tracks in general. So shout out to everybody, and yeah.
Well, Cedric, on behalf of all of us at the KBueno Racing Network, congratulations on your 6th win of the season. 3rd in a row. You've got history in your hands. Go celebrate. We'll see you in 2 weeks' time.
I appreciate it, man. Have a good night.
Cedric Hunter, the winner once again, this time in the Backout 225 here from the virtual Phoenix Raceway. Second in line, Warren Kyle Keith and his Target Ford Mustang. What a comeback drive after what happened last week at Pocono. But Francisco, lots of great points for the Florida driver. You've got him.
Well, Warren, you had a pretty good car underneath you. You went with the 3-stop strategy there. We saw different strategy calls throughout the night. What led you to believe that this was going to be the right strategy for you tonight?
That's the only strategy we had. Me and Jaden both had EOLs, not because of drivers meeting, just because we joined the session late, which is a rule we have. If you join after drivers meeting, you get EOL. So yeah, we started in the back and we put ourselves at a big disadvantage off the rip, especially in a all green race. Cedric got out to just monster lead, and there's no coming back from that unless you get a caution, which we didn't. So kind of figured after I saw the tire wear in that first run, I'm like, we're gonna have to do something else, because doing his strategy and 2-stopping is just not gonna work, especially if everybody else does it. Kind of just did the quick math in my head and figured out that if I could split it, maybe 60 each way, we can kind of touch base and see where we are on that final stop, and hopefully that should mathematically put us back in the ball game. Luckily it did. We pitted. I think Jaden pitted first and kind of opened the floodgates, and everyone else decided that was probably the best course of action, maybe catch a caution or something. So I'm glad the Target 4 Mustang finished second, especially after last week. Just wish I could have gotten back to the Cedric. I probably would have not repaid a favor, but given him hell. But we look forward to going to Daytona and trying not to lose by a hair strand next week or in 2 weeks.
Yeah, trying to not break iRacing scoring next time, and maybe not buy a car in the grass would be ideal, Warren, when we go to Daytona in 2 weeks' time. But you've been putting in some good results, effort. You've had a good season in the races that you have participated. You got the speed. The wins are coming up soon. When you look at the tracks coming up, is there any single track or any particular set of tracks that you have your eyes on that you think it could be the chance to call yourself a race winner?
I mean, not to toot the horn, which I never, I don't like to do, but any one of them. Maybe not Sonoma. Sonoma's just gonna be it's gonna be a slugfest. You might as well take the rally cars out there. But I have Indianapolis. I would love to win there. We really had good speed at Phoenix. We brought a brand new brake package to the Phoenix, or not Phoenix. Yeah, we brought it here too, but the Pocono. And we've had great speed with it here in the hot, slick summer, and Indianapolis is going to be one of those tracks where that brake package, I think, is going to be absolutely crucial. So I'm looking forward to Indianapolis. Hopefully we can win that, and get some races in and get ready for the chase. We're really good at Richmond statistically. It's our best track, so hopefully Indianapolis and Richmond are my two ones I have circled. But just with these races, you just never know how it'll go. And just like tonight, I didn't think I had speed in practice, and then next thing you know, we're finishing P2. So just gotta capitalize, take advantage of everything, and see how the cards play.
Well, I'm sure it's going to be a good time over the next couple of weeks for you, Warren, if you can keep this kind of momentum going in the right direction. Before we let you go, anybody you want to give a shout out to that helps makes this happen for you, the whole 2014?
Yeah, right back at SCAM, coming out, and also testing those brake packages. We've all come down to what we think works, and so far it's proven pretty good. We've had some good runs as a team. Obviously, Bass Pro Shops at St. Augustine, they'll be back on the car at Daytona, with a pretty special scheme there. And then, you guys for broadcasting it. I know Bueno, he's enjoying his new digs up in the Northeast. Can't wait for you to experience winter.
Oh, no.
That felt personal. That laugh felt personal.
We can talk about that later, honestly.
Hey, he's a Florida boy. I'm the same way. But yeah, thanks to you guys for doing it. It's great to have the broadcast every week, and look forward to seeing you guys in sunny Daytona in 2 weeks.
Yeah, we'll look forward to it there. He'll be back here next week, and we'll get to hang out and go to the ballpark and watch some games. But I'm sure that you'll also have your eyes peeled on that Team USA game in this World Cup that will be going on for the next month or so. So hopefully they can get the job done, and hopefully all the Americans that we have in here are watching as we stand alongside. But we hope to see you out there in Daytona. Congratulations on your top 3 finish here tonight, Warren. Enjoy the off week, enjoy Father's Day weekend, and we hope to see you out there.
Gracias, ya se manera.
How about the Spanish there for Warren Kyle Keith? Coming up second place here in the Backout 225 from Phoenix. And we're now joined by the third place finisher in Jaden Porter. Jaden, what a race this was. You started at the back of the field, end of line penalty. You quickly made work of the field. You worked up to the top 5. And then it was just a strategy fest from there. Tell us what you experienced here tonight.
Yeah, sucks that we had the end of line penalty. The game crashed after 8 o'clock, and the rules to go to the back after that. And unfortunately, it was the one race that I won the pole, and kind of just put me in the, especially from a flag to flag race, kind of just put me in a hole the rest of the race to try to make up time, especially on Cedric, since he got to start first in clean air, and he's usually probably one of the best in this league on tires. So giving him clean air and all that was kind of almost hand him the race a little bit, but got up there pretty quickly, and then wore my tires out at the end of the first run, and just like I said, was in a hole the rest of the race after the beginning part of the race. So I'm okay with third, and just glad to be back on track.
So Jaden, I want to ask you one thing about something that we talked about here in the booth throughout the middle of the race. When you go flag to flag and you're just focused on strategy and making it to the end of the race, but you're running most of these laps by yourself and not fighting anyone crucially for track position, what do you think about? Does your mind wander in those moments, and how do you stay locked in when those things kind of happen?
Me, I'm kind of when I'm not streaming, I'm kind of a silent driver. Like, I just kind of focus on my lines and everything. But I mean, the whole time I was just thinking of what I could do to either better my track position or give me a chance at Cedric. Like what laps to pit on, because I knew I was in a hole, so I'm just trying to think of every which way I can to make up time, get the best finish I can. So it's kind of fun to have races like that. I just wish I would have started up front in that last place. I think we had a lot better of a shot. But happy with the flag-to-flag race. It's pretty fun to do these.
I was hearing Francisco kind of chirp up over the broadcast. I don't know if he wanted to say anything to that comment, but it seemed like you had some words, Francisco. No?
I mean, he said he was silent. I mean, I doubt that.
You can watch my stream back. I was pretty silent today.
Well, now
officials are different.
Well, yeah, he's got some chats in there from the Twitch streaming, and it's really cool to see that you've kind of dived into that. Saw you on Minecraft the other day, which is kind of fun. But Jaden, in all seriousness, we saw you did miss the last 2 races. You dropped a little bit in points, slid back to the top 5. What does a finish like this mean for you now that you can kind of regain that momentum as the late regular season kicks in? You've got a chase spot now, but just to get back up to the top 3.
Yeah, I mean, it feels good just to be back on track doing a league race. I haven't really been able to do any because my internet's been a little buggy due to some certain things, but that's all fixed. Feels good to have a good run. I haven't ran the next gen a little bit. I've kind of been focusing on the B car a little bit, and kind of weird to get back to the next gen. But I knew beginning of the season I was going to miss a few races due to certain events or whatnot. But make sure I have a chase spot locked up to where we can compete for a championship. Now it's just about getting wins and building momentum for when the chase starts to get going with it.
Well, the momentum is back into swing for you in this 82 camp as Daytona moves on in a few weeks' time. But before we let you go, Jaden, anybody you want to give a shout-out to or thank for the third-place finish?
Yeah, thank everyone at KBueno Racing. Thanks to you guys for doing the broadcast. Thanks to all the owners of DTH. Thanks to Chili's. I always got to thank Chili's. They're the best. I mean, if you don't like Chili's, I don't know what you're thinking. But thanks to everyone who's watching my stream, and that's about it.
Well, Jaden, as always, we always appreciate the time we get to talk to you. Congratulations on the podium finish and your return to the series after a few weeks, and wishing you the best of luck as we head to Daytona in a pair of weeks' time.
All right, thank you, buddy.
That's Jaden Porter, driver of his 82 Chevrolet, racks up the third-place finish in his return to the series' first start in the Droppin Hammah Cup Series this year since Talladega. Well, we move on, and after Talladega, we had a few weeks of 2-mile racetracks, then the short track here at Phoenix, and all of a sudden, Francisco, we are back on a 2-mile-plus racetrack. Daytona Beach, Florida is calling the names of these drivers. We're back at Super Speedway. We're back at Daytona. We were back at the same place we started the season off earlier on this year in February. So what can you make of what this season should bring, and obviously how Daytona will be in the mix now that we're in these final races of the regular campaign? Oh, we'll just see how it all lines up at Daytona. Will come your way in about 2 weeks' time. We'll take the off week for Father's Day weekend, and we'll be back in action on June 28th, 2026. You won't want to miss any of the coverage right here on the KBueno Racing Network YouTube channel. That begins at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Again, right here on the KBueno Racing Network YouTube channel. We've also got more coverage as the SAC Cup Series comes to a close. On Thursday, June 18th, we'll have coverage of the semifinal round from the virtual paperclip in Martinsville, Virginia. Should be a good one as 3 drivers get eliminated and the final 6 move on to the Homestead Miami finale to win it all for SAC Cup Series Season 5. Join us then, 8:35 p.m. Eastern as well, right here on the KBueno Racing Network YouTube channel before we are back in action for the rest of the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series season and closing out the SAC Cup Series in style as well. Well, we were glad that you were a part of the coverage with us here in the Back Out 225, where for the 3rd time in a row and for the 6th time this season, Cedric Hunter enjoys the taste of Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series victory lane as he continues to cement himself as a primed-up championship favorite. For everyone at the Droppin' the Hammah Cup Series, for Steven Stempy, Richard Swavely, Warren Kyle Keith, and the rest of the amazing crew that makes this series happen each and every week, and on behalf of the incredible group that makes up the incredible KBueno Racing Network, for Charlie Byer, Keelan Belsha, Mikey Neal, Nate Polite, and my good colleague in the booth, Francisco Bacallao, I'm Kenneth Bueno, waving so long from Phoenix, where Cedric Hunter gets a victory in the series once more.